Commissioner Black?
Here.
Commissioner Eisen?
Here.
Commissioner Harrow? And Vice Chair Stamper?
Here.
Oh, there you are. Great. All right. Very good. Let's look at did everyone have a chance yet? And if you haven't, I'll give you a few minutes to look at the minutes from last session. Everyone, as soon as you have all looked at it, I'd like to hear somebody move to approve the minutes.
I can move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All right, everyone favor of approving these minutes, say aye, please.
Aye.
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 All right, good. Minutes approved. Next, announcements and correspondence. Do we have any announcements or any correspondence to discuss here?
I have one, but I do see our city manager, Bob Nisbet, is on. I didn't know if he had anything he needed to share or wanted to share. Bob, are you there? I guess that's a no. Okay, kind of exciting news. Some of you may have heard about this, but if not, you will hear. We've been working really closely with the county, and Eddie will provide a little bit more information during his update. But we were notified early this week that the county would be bringing a vaccination clinic to Half Moon Bay starting tomorrow.
Wow.
So
Wow.
Beautiful.
It's planned as a weekly vaccination site. It will not be every week. There are going to be some exceptions. For instance, there probably won't be one next week because there will be a little different approach, but it will be a very regular thing in collaboration with Our Lady of the Pillar Catholic Church. This week, tomorrow, and Friday is very, very focused on 65 and up, farm workers, restaurant and food workers, grocery store employees, and in-home support service workers, people that provide healthcare and support in people's homes that are not necessarily nurses or doctors. There's a collaboration of city and nonprofit staff that have been working around the clock the last couple of days on helping with logistics and registrations. The goal is to vaccinate 600 people at the church site tomorrow and Friday, a total of 600 between the 2 days. The county will also have a mobile van, a mobile team that is going to 5 or 6 farms and plans to vaccinate another 300 farm workers on site Thursday and Friday. And then Puente down in Pescadero is doing an event this weekend and plans to vaccinate another 300. So that's a total of 1,200 vaccinations on the coast just this week. Really exciting, really grateful to the county for making this happen. And as we move forward, I think folks have heard on March 15th, the state's already announced that as of March 15th, anyone 16 and up or 18 and up, depending on the vaccine, because each is approved for different age groups, is eligible if they have comorbidities with COVID. So that's a health issue, disability, obesity, heart condition, any of those things. There'll be more details as that comes, but that's really going to blow the doors open and make it eligible for a lot of folks. And so the goal is to really work out some of the kinks over the next couple of weeks and be ready to do some serious vaccinating here on the coast.
Wow.
So really, really exciting and grateful that we're able to support and be a part of it. City staff continues to do testing twice a week, on Mondays at the TED Adcock and Thursdays at the Senior Center. And I think we're doing good work. And I think the numbers are proving that this stuff is working. So really, really excited about that.
I'm assuming, Matthew, that these are probably Moderna vaccines, just because otherwise the Pfizer takes more, takes more care. It takes more situational.
That's exactly right. And then I think as Johnson & Johnson, I don't know if you saw, but the FDA has made some good comments and probably approves that soon. That will also be really important for the mobile testing. Vice Chair Stamper, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wondered where teachers fit in with that plan.
So yeah, as I mentioned, those that they're focused on, teachers and first responders were not part of this group. And that's only because the Office of Education has its own process and priority system. And the first responders have their own system to get vaccinated. So they're getting vaccinated. It's just through different means.
Okay.
Thanks for asking that question. That's an important question.
All right, I think that's very good news. That's great. Yeah.
Matthew, where can somebody find the information? Is it on a website or anything?
Nope, it's intentionally this week not, because they beta tested the same process up in Daly City 2 weeks ago, and they made an announcement the night before, and the very next day 1,000 people showed up for 500 doses. So to avoid that, it's been very, very targeted. We've worked through the chamber to get through the restaurants and the food, and the food workers in the grocery stores and places like that. The senior center has been working really hard to get in contact with seniors that are not yet vaccinated. And then working with the ag department and some county staff that work on ag. And then of course, Alas and Puente and Coastside Hope doing outreach to those groups. So it's been very focused, and it's been a very, very busy couple of days. So probably a good thing that we didn't just blast it out there. In the future, it will be something where people can register online, and it'll be publicized and people have access to registration.
Good.
And this week there are no walk-ups available. We have a waiting list of food distribution volunteers through the senior center and through the support agencies that will fill in any gaps if there's available doses after the appointments are done.
Okay, very good. I'm going to move on to public comments. Do we have anyone in the public who would like to make a comment?
We have one from Carolyn Belknap.
Excellent.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. I live in Frenchman's Creek, and I'm calling in because I'm really baffled by what's going on with our playground. We were told last year that new equipment was being purchased.
Right.
Probably 6 months ago, our equipment disappeared, our existing equipment, which was working fine. And we've been waiting, and week before last, a sign went up asking for donations. So we're very confused, and I'd like to try to educate the rest of the people in our neighborhood about what's going on. So.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining in and giving us some comments. We will definitely be addressing it somewhere in our meeting today. We have on the agenda is an update from the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Recreation, and hopefully they have some news, because this is our nonprofit that is helping to raise funds to make sure that this equipment, this playground goes in. So I hope you can stay tuned. Otherwise, this is being recorded. So you're able to, if you can't stick around, you can watch it on YouTube and Pacific Coast Television, so that you'll know exactly what happened in this meeting. Do you have any comment to make on this, Matthew, or did I cover it?
I'm actually happy to just directly answer the question, and then there will be more details during the Friends report. Thank you, Ms. Belknap. So just a little bit of history, and you're correct. The city had identified Frenchman's Creek Park as an important park to replace the playground equipment on in 2019 and 2020, and went through a process, did some outreach, actually held some events at the park where some of the neighbors came and provided comments. Developed a design, and then the equipment was purchased. And then prior to installation, there's a timing, got to get through certain, winter weather and all that. Prior to getting it installed is when COVID hit, and the city had to make some really tough decisions about where it was spending its money and how it was using its funds. And the capital improvement plan was paused at that time. And this was one of the projects on the list that even though we had the equipment, we didn't have the funding to actually do the installation. and then immediately engaged the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec to start working on a plan for fundraising. We need to raise about $40,000 to finish the installation. And then subsequently, about a month and a half ago, as you noted, there was a failure of one of the pieces of equipment that made it dangerous. And so Public Works had to close it and eventually remove the equipment. So the equipment we have, the new equipment we have, and we have a contractor that's updating their bid to us right now as we work with the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec to raise the funds so that we can do an installation, and the hope is that it will be installed this spring.
Very good. All right. Thank you so much. Any other public comments before we close and move on to the rest of the agenda?
I don't see any other hands
That's it?
raised.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Jonathan. So I will close public comments and let's go on to the staff informational reports, starting with the City Council updates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've had 2 City Council meetings since our last Recreation Commission meeting, and I'll provide some updates on those meetings. At our February 2nd meeting, there were a couple of items that were of note from the Department of Public Works. We have some staff that are focused on environmental sustainability here in Half Moon Bay, and they're part of the Department of Public Works, and they brought forward 2 items. The first was an update on the the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, CAAP. And this is a plan that we put in place to achieve certain goals around sustainability. And it's done in a way that it makes sure that these plans are made in an equitable and a fair way, that they consider all members of the community, all types of businesses in the community. And so that's well underway. And there's been a lot of community engagement through a lot of our local community groups, including the Senior Co-Siders. There's been several meetings held with them to gather feedback. YLI, which is the Youth Leadership Institute, to engage the youth in our community, and ALAS, which is a Latinx serving nonprofit here in Half Moon Bay. And so there's a lot of different things that it focuses on, and I certainly think that at some point this commission would probably appreciate an update. I believe we had an update middle of last year, but obviously the commission's changed a lot, and so I could see on a future meeting having Veronica Vostenak from Public Works come and do an update and let you know what it is and how you as a commission could be involved. The other item that she brought forward, Public Works brought forward, was just an initial discussion about something called REACH codes. And REACH codes would be changes to our building code, to city ordinances around environmental sustainability, specifically working towards eliminating the use of natural gas in Half Moon Bay and going all sustainable electric. It's obviously a pretty divisive issue. It's a big deal to a lot of people, especially depending on what you do and what your perspective is. But it's something that is happening at the state level, it's happening at the county level, and the city's gonna have to approach it at some point. So we've just started the conversation. I think the initial idea is that any new construction would have to be built without natural gas under most situations. Large renovations would have to be done without natural gas. And then potentially, eventually, there would be a kind of a drop dead date where existing homes and businesses would actually convert to all electric way down the road. The chamber is doing outreach right now with their membership to get some perspectives, especially from restaurants who are very reliant on gas appliances. There will be additional outreach events over the next several months, and Public Works plans to bring some draft ideas and concepts back to the council this summer. Any questions on those 2 items from February 2nd?
I can just make a comment. I mean, until PG&E stops, our electrical outages and guarantees us that that is not going to happen in the future, which we know is not going to happen. Gas is like, to have anything gas, like your hot water heater, like I do, and other people do, so that they have at least hot water, at least they have some backup. But to be reliant on electricity in California as a sole source, I think that's a bad move.
And that's the kind of information that needs to be shared as part of the process, and the council is going to have to consider those types of comments. So
Yeah.
thank you. We also held a meeting with the council on February 16th, and a couple items that I think are of interest to you. We had a discussion of the Community Services Financial Assistance Grants Program, which is something we started 3 or 4 years ago. It's an annual allotment of funds that the council allows our local nonprofits to apply for and receive grants for different programs to serve the community. In 2020, just due to what was going on with COVID, the council decided to forego the normal application process and instead selected 7 existing nonprofits that we had been working with that were very focused on serving the needs of people impacted by COVID, and provided funding to them to help support the community. For the coming fiscal year, we will, under the direction of the council from our last meeting, we will go back to a little bit more traditional process where we will allow applications from the nonprofits here in our community, but they want the focus of the funding to remain on COVID support and relief around, mental health, housing stability, food instability, and other ways to support folks as we recover from COVID. So those applications will open in another month or so. We have a city council subcommittee that will review the applications and make recommendations to the full council before the budget's adopted in May or June. The other item of note is the council adopted or approved a memorandum of understanding with the County of San Mateo around our relationship and our work with them on the Coastside Inn Hotel, which has been converted into a homeless shelter. That document is on the agenda for next Tuesday. Or no, it was on the agenda yesterday and approved by the Board of Supervisors, the County Board of Supervisors. So that's been approved. And so we have a good framework that we'll be working together. I think one of the most important things it does is it allows us now to establish a community advisory committee, which will be a group of citizens that will work with the city, the county, and the operator that will be operating the facility to look at impacts on the community and how to mitigate them and how to make sure that this operates in a way that is supportive to the community and the people that are in need. So we'll be convening that group in the next couple of weeks. We have an application process set up, and that'll go live probably next week. And we're looking forward to.
Quick question, going back to, just going back to your grant application. I noticed that there wasn't really a mention of anything that related to supporting outdoor recreation, which obviously has been huge during this pandemic. And you could, I don't know if you're fitting it under the auspice of mental health or not, but I certainly would hope that there is consideration for groups that are helping to facilitate any sort of outdoor activities that promote more safe social engagements and also support our community's mental health, as well as the physical health of supporting so many people on our outdoor areas. I just think we're not handling the load very well, and that has implications for like public messes that are not safe, as well as just it's bringing a lot of people together. So that's top of mind, and that's why one of the reasons I'm on this commission. So.
That's great. I will definitely share that with the subcommittee as we start working through the application process. It's a great comment. Thank you. That's it for city council updates.
City council updates. Good. Now we move on to the recreation updates.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner.
You're taking it here. All right, take it away.
Thank you. So my first update, you all might remember last month, Matthew mentioned that we had been seeing some issues and some incidents happening at our skate park with some of the youth, to the point where it's becoming kind of a common occurrence over there. And we felt it necessary to think about installing some cameras there, not as a purpose of surveillance on the kids, but as a way to have documented record of things that are happening up there, if and when we do hear about some of these issues and incidents happening. And we actually reached out to the school district, to Sean McFetridge and the director of technology at Cunha Unified, to find out what business they went through to receive their cameras and their IT equipment. So they put us in touch with a really great company called Cisco Meraki, and they work primarily with local government and school districts in this regard, setting them up with cameras and in-house surveillance equipment. So we've been working with them for the last month or so, trying to get some test models sent to us that we can kind of look at and evaluate and see what's a good fit for our location and for our needs. And after a couple of shipping hiccups, we finally did receive some of those test models. So we were able to look at them and pick out one that really works for our needs there, what we've been looking for in regards to camera equipment. And right now, currently, we're looking through the school district's adopted policy for camera use, as well as other agencies that are kind of in our similar situation where they have a skate park that's not being supervised, but that does have cameras on site. So not a whole lot of progress there. I think Matthew and I need to sit down and really develop a policy that works for us, that fits us. And I think at that point, Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, but we'll probably bring that policy to the commission here before we take it to the council.
Okay. Anything else? Can you give us a little more so that this commission can feel more connected to the recreation program, because we need to hear more about, like, it's been a month, what has gone on in that month, that, so that we feel more in touch with what it is that the department is doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wasn't quite done yet.
Okay. I didn't know what that pause was. I thought it was like, okay, that's.
I was just asking Matthew, could you verify and confirm, Matthew, that once we develop a policy for the use of those cameras, we'll be bringing it back to the commission for them to kind of look at and evaluate.
Yeah, sorry, I gave a thumbs up. I thought you saw it. My bad.
I did. I'm sorry. It's okay. Yes, Paulette, I got a lot more to go. So.
Oh, okay, good. All right.
And we'll be touching more on this probably in the next meeting or two after Matthew and I establish a good policy for the cameras. The next update I have is an exciting one. It's a programming update. Last year, the city did enter into a facility joint use agreement with the school district and the Boys and Girls Club. That's something that we've been hoping to do and trying to do for several years now, and finally got all the right people at the table to make that happen. And essentially what that allows us to do is to use the school district and Boys and Girls Club facilities for our recreation programs or for our city events and functions, and vice versa. So we got that approved, I believe, in the summertime, and of all the potential that comes with that and all the possibilities, we wanted to start small, and we wanted to start with something that was impactful and that was ambitious, but not too overly ambitious. And we made the decision to start with pickleball. A few of you probably know pickleball is a pretty popular activity in Half Moon Bay. We have over 100 folks that are in our pickleball group that have come consistently or on occasion. And it just seemed like a really great place to start with this new facility joint use agreement. So we were ready to launch that back in November. We had a system set up where the recreation staff would monitor and regulate the participants that through our program use that facility, the Cunha Unified Middle School tennis courts. And then we rolled back the shelter in place order. So all our hopes for starting in November kind of went out the window. But now we're back at a point where it is an activity that's allowed. So we've been in conversation with the Boys and Girls Club and the school district regarding availability and scheduling for that site over there. And I was really hoping today that I could come here and and have a firm start date and confirmed days of the week that will be allowed usage of that site. But it looks like we're still going to have another conversation or two with the Boys and Girls Club, just as we're now being allowed to operate outdoors and a little bit more freely, a little bit more relaxed. So are they. So they're able to find opportunities to use that site as well. So there's a little bit of an availability issue, but we're working through it, and we're hoping that by the middle of March, we'll be able to start pickleball again. So that's pretty exciting. Typically, our pickleball program's held indoors at the community center and offered on a drop-in basis. We won't be able to do that at the school district's facility just due to the gathering size limitations and the fact that we do need to regulate it and monitor it. So we're going to be offering access to the tennis courts based on a reservation system where a group of up to 8 people can reserve a court for an hour at a time. And again, we're still trying to settle on days of the week that we can move in there and do that. But we have a really great system set up, and we're excited to be able to bring pickleball back. And again, I'll definitely we'll have started by the time we have our next meeting, but it's pretty exciting. We got a lot of people out there that are going to be happy to hear. And I'm really excited to be the one to get to tell them because I know they're itching to get back and play pickleball.
No doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of a means to an end. We loved having pickleball inside, and one day down the road we'll be able to bring them back home where they were. But for now, it's a good substitute for that, and I think we're going to have just a lot of really happy people out in the community. So that's something that you'll see happening here in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. Now I got one question for you. So I'm pretty involved with basketball here on the coast side, right? I coach the middle school and I coach the high school. Now, I know that we just moved into Reds here, and I know we can't go into playing indoors, but for the future, would it be possible for us to set up like an adult rec league for basketball inside our Boys and Girls Club facility, or maybe even like open runs for our youth in the community? Because I feel like by getting the youth more involved and using our facilities, I feel like they would stay out of trouble a little more. Because I know that when I was growing up, I didn't have a facility. So I was out there doing, stuff that I shouldn't be doing. It's quite simple.
Yeah.
But since we do have a big facility, I mean, even if we charge $5-10 or whatever it is for them to come in for the day, I think we could, it would help out the Boys and Girls Club program for sure a lot. And also it'd help out the community. So, just something to keep in mind for us to, hopefully try to work into in the future if that's possible.
Absolutely. That's a
I have
really
a quick
good
question about that. Do you think that there's possibility to do something with the outdoor basketball at Cunha, or does it need to be indoors? Because I'm wondering if outdoor would be like doable right away.
For basketball?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that question was directed to me or towards.
To you.
Me? Okay. So, with the problem with playing outdoors is that we do have a lot of high school kids that are trying to go into college playing outdoors. We have kids that are trying to get scholarships to play indoors, and a bunch of them, they don't want to play outdoors because, playing on concrete is bad for the knees. So they're trying to secure like a scholarship essentially, or even some of them are trying to go pro. I know a couple people, I know someone from town that actually went pro overseas. So he's just trying to, get some workout in, but he can't because he's not trying to risk getting an injury. As far as outdoor, I've been out there playing myself, and I'll be honest with you, I come back home and I'm sore and I'm beat up. The concrete has, it doesn't hold back. Yeah.
I'm just really curious about that because I agree with you on all areas of wanting to give the kids more stuff to do right away, and it's so hard with the going back and forth between all the indoor restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it sounds like for kids who are really serious, it would be a problem. But do you think there would be a demand of intermediate level players? Like if you're talking about a rec league, I'm just wondering if that would be sufficient to help a good amount of kids, give them something regular to do, and wouldn't have to contend with that.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm currently coaching with for Boys and Girls Club with Cunha. So we have a bunch of I have 14 kids in my bubble, and they're out there practicing on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So, we have restrictions where we can't have, full-on contact games, such as like 5-on-5. We can only have 2 players at a court, share basketball, and have their mask on. So until we can move into the next tier, I'm pretty sure that we can probably start doing something like that. But until then, we're stuck where we are.
Right. Competition is not allowed.
Yeah, no.
In the current tiers. So, kids can obviously access outdoor courts already. We as a community haven't really restricted. Some cities took the rims off the hoops, and we never went that far here at all. I don't know how accessible the school courts are anymore. When I was growing up, we played at Cunha all the time outdoors. But I think another thing to Commissioner Harrow's point, also the weather. You can only play outside on the coast seasonally, because if the ground's wet and you're outside, you're asking for an injury. So as somebody who played basketball on the coast my entire life, there's only certain times a year you play, and it's usually late summer and early fall. You don't play any other time because the ground's too wet and slick. So Eddie will address this a little bit more, but to all of your points, doing an indoor basketball league or open gyms for adults and youth is something that's been on our list for a long time. Unfortunately, we don't control any facilities that would allow that. And it's only been the last, I'd say, year and a half that we've had a relationship developing with the school district and the Boys and Girls Club that I think will get us there. I think we were actually getting pretty close before the shelter in place. We were working on an adult, like daytime, lunchtime, open gym setup. So I do think we'll get there. It's on our list and something we're hopeful to do as soon as possible.
Awesome. Good to hear.
Yeah, thank you for that, Commissioner Harrow. And just to wrap that up real quick, Matthew and I, over the last 3 years, have developed kind of a wish list of events and activities and programs that, if and when we're granted access to the event center or these larger spaces that would accommodate larger programming, things that we would like to see happen in Half Moon Bay. And definitely you and I should sit down one day and check it out and look over it and see what's doable in the near future. But
absolutely,
we're absolutely in a really great place, much better than we've ever been in regards to a relationship with the school district and the Boys and Girls Club. Sean McFetridge has been amazing. So is Joel Jacobson, the executive of the Boys and Girls Club. So they want what we want, and that's to provide opportunities in regards to recreation for the community. So this is just the beginning, and pickleball is the first step, and we'll get there. I have no doubt.
Awesome. Good to hear, man. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, and so just to wrap that up, so that was our programming update. Again, I haven't announced any of this to the pickleballers yet because we haven't settled on a good start date and days of the week that we'll have consistent access to the facility. But once we do, we'll put the word out, and I guarantee we'll see people in their workout shorts and their paddles walking around town. Another quick update I have is regarding the community center kitchen, the Ted Adcock Community Center. We have a really nice, spacious kitchen at the community center, but one that has not been usable for a very long time just due to it not being up to code commercially and just for food prep purposes. During shutdown, though, our amazing Public Works Department was able to completely renovate our kitchen from top to bottom, new appliances, new equipment, new fixtures. It's just a 180-degree turnaround. And now we're looking at this amazing kitchen that we have and thinking about ways that we'll use it in the future and ways that we can use it now. Obviously, in the future, when we're back to sort of normalcy, we'll have reservations on the weekends, which we usually do 10 months out of the year. Every Saturday, we have a reservation at the community center that would access this kitchen and use it. But right now, we're not open. Right now, we're not able to allow reservations for our facilities and these large events and parties. So we had a discussion a week or two back about another way that we could provide a service to the community using this kitchen. And we did some looking around and saw that a lot of other cities and places are are using their commercial kitchens right now and offering those as rentals to brick and mortar establishments that have had to shut down during COVID, caterers, wholesale food providers that have in this last year lost their ability to use a space for just that. And it's called a ghost kitchen. And a lot of cities are doing this right now, where they allow these businesses and restaurants to rent this space for personal private profit. Now, again, during non-pandemic times, the use of a kitchen would be prioritized for city needs and community needs. And we wouldn't allow for that kind of a rental. It's just kind of an industry standard that you don't allow a group to rent your facility for personal private profit. But right now, we're looking at this as an opportunity to provide a service to those businesses that have shut down and, again, don't have a site to be able to prepare food and run a business. So we've been looking into it, some of the different policies that are being used by some other cities and a comparable situation as ours. And we're hoping that in the next, hopefully, few weeks to month that we'll be able to bring a policy to you to look at and evaluate and approve or not and send up to the city council regarding allowing this a group to rent the kitchen for personal private profit. And it's something that it's kind of thinking outside the box in a way to, more importantly, providing a service to the community, but also generating another stream of revenue for our department. So it's kind of exciting. I think we'll be able to do some good by offering the kitchen in this way. The one thing that we're waiting on right now is the Public Works on their end. They have upgraded and renovated the kitchen. Now we need the health department to come and basically sign off on this kitchen, saying that it is commercially graded kitchen. Once we have that, then we can start thinking about ways that we can rent this out, fees that we might implement if that's the case. So that's where we are currently with the kitchen, looking at ways we can be useful to the community using that kitchen. And I think in the next few weeks, we'll probably have some more information on that for you.
That sounds really good. Getting the kitchen utilized is a very good idea. All right, so now we know that for at least the next 3 months, we can pretty much guarantee that nothing is going to be back to normal within that 3-month period. Do you have, you're working now with Matt. Matt's back on board, is that right, or not yet?
Yeah, Matt's back.
And so you're working with him. Do you sit down and think about, okay, for instance, what are we going to do in these next 3 months? What is going to be our game plan for how to serve the community in let's say, a 3-month period, a 4-month, next quarter, next half? What is because it's like, let's get something, like a plan, because the problem with the lack of planning is we can see it's making the vaccine. It was the testing, the PPE, the protective gear, people not planning anything, and then the last minute, that's when they start their planning. Well, no, you've wasted months knowing that a vaccine is going to happen at some point, that they're working on a vaccine. So why wouldn't you have a rollout plan right away? But no, that's the problem. The way people work, they don't really work so that it's really effective and efficient. So I'm just wondering what you guys are doing in terms of thinking about the fact, for instance, that for sure 3 months, 4 months, 5 months is not going to be back to normal. So in the meantime, what does recreation look like in Half Moon Bay in this in-between period? So I don't want to put you on the spot right now, Eddie. I think I don't know if you're frozen or what, but it would be nice next month if you came in and kind of gave us like your game, the game plan for the next few months, and then, you know, an update as to, you know, as things change and hopefully become more normal, you know. And so, like, what's the, you know, are we going to start thinking about concerts or this or that, whatever it is, you know, but just to have some kind of more of information about what's going on in the recreation department.
Paulette, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're clear on what you're asking for. Are you asking for what we're doing now as far as planning and recreation, or what are we thinking about as things open up?
Both.
Okay. So,
yeah, definitely what we're doing now, because we want to, I think everyone on the commission wants to feel like connected to the department and like what's going on, so that if people talk to us or ask us something, we're not be clueless. Here we are, we're on the recreation commission and we don't really know what's going on. So we want to make sure that we know what's going on. And yes, this is a different time. This isn't business as usual. This isn't recreation as usual. But as Hillary said, and Luis is, you know, we all know how important the recreation part is for kids, especially kids and adults, all of us. The mental health, our physical health. This is what, and the community, feeling like part of the community. So all of that, the connection, the physical, the mental, so important. And what are we doing? What are we trying to do? And what are we doing to help address that? Because that, to me, is what the recreation department is about. So
a couple of things. If you have not already done so, commissioners, I'd recommend you go to our recreation website, because what Eddie shares at these meetings is just updates on new things and different things that are going on. He's not giving you an exhaustive list of all the recreation activities that are taking place. And so you should go to our rec website and see what's there. But as we've said before, we're also using recreation staff during this time to respond and react to a lot of other things within the city. And so some of those things just are not recreation focused right now. And that's just the response the city has to make to deal with the pandemic. And for example, you know, I talked about the work that's going into the vaccinations this week. Recreation staff have been involved at every step of the process. They've been answering hundreds of phone calls and getting people registered the last couple of days. So there's constantly stuff like that happening that really isn't recreation focused, it's community focused. And so that's not going to show up in any of this stuff.
Even that would be nice to hear, Matthew, just so that we have a sense, so that if people say, well, what are they doing in recreation? I can say, well, one of the things that they're doing right now is focusing on the vaccination program.
Honestly,
so that there's, just a sense.
Chair Eisen, we can't give you an exhaustive list of everything our staff is doing every week. Again, I think the key is go to the website, see the existing programs that we have in place, and then at our updates, we'll continue to update you on new things and different things that we're working on. And then, yes, I think at our next meeting, Eddie can talk about some of the things we've been meeting about planning for the future, because we are making plans. We expect and we are very hopeful that this summer things get back to normal. And I also don't, Eddie, I don't think you were done with your update, were you?
No, I got a couple more things.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
No, let me jump in there. No, and I like this topic though, because I do think it's important to have a better understanding. We probably need to understand the site itself, but I mean, just myself in looking around at what different, I've now studied 8 different cities and what they're doing from a recreation standpoint right now. It's actually quite robust, some of these cities. Now, I understand they have probably a bigger department and bigger things to deal with, but you know, have we considered some of these ideas? And it'd be great to know what is the thought process, so we can be like, okay, no, we've considered. I mean, there's even Redwood City's holding a whole video game thing. And they have all these different age groups going on, and people are, you know, it's not my necessary choice, but just to engage with the youth of the community, because people are just sitting there doing nothing, and they've got all these tournaments set up and, you know, all these different ideas. And, you know, each place has all this different stuff going on. it'd be great to have a sense of what we thought of, what we can do, what we can't do, what other cities we're hopefully talking to and brainstorming with, because I definitely think we should be. And then from my perspective as well, like grant programs, things we're applying for, I'll bring that up later, some grant stuff that's come my way. And people are like, well, why haven't you guys applied for this stuff? And why haven't you done this? And, you know, it is good to get a really good perspective. So when we report it out, we know what's going on, at least to some point. And that's probably on us too, researching the website, which I probably need to do in greater depth. So I promise to do from now on.
Very good. So Eddie, go ahead.
If I put this in the chat,
sorry.
is that where the recreation projects are, or like where is the recreation current projects site? Because I went to find it, and from recreation I went to city projects, but is there a way to just send that to us so we know that we're going to the right place?
Yeah, I'll put a link here in the chat box in just a moment.
Okay.
Okay, good conversation. This is good. And you guys are right. I would love to have you guys come in and see what we were working on. Obviously, spring and summer rolling around the corner. Camps are a big matter of discussion for us right now. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, and we should definitely catch up and talk about some of the ideas that we have. My second to last update, I've got 2 more points real quick. As we're now able to come back and offer some outdoor programming that's permitted through the state guidance, the Little League is also doing the same thing right now. They're putting together a program to come back and host a Little League here in Half Moon Bay, but again, a non-competitive league that's based on practicing and conditioning, and obviously to come back and host this kind of a league, it comes with some modifications that need to be made as per the state directives. So we've been working closely with the Little League over the last few weeks. We've actually met with them out at Smithfield to identify some areas of repair that was needed, both in the structures out there, the dugouts and fencing, as well as the field maintenance. And Matthew and I met with the president and a lot of other folks from the league, and within a matter of days of Matthew submitting that to John in the Public Works Department, they completed almost everything. I got a call about 2 days later saying that they were really impressed with the progress that was made out there and all the repairs that were made. And so now they're ready to go. Here at the beginning of March, they'll be starting up their non-competitive conditioning and practice league in hopes that by April we'll have relaxed a little bit more in our shelter-in-place directives, and maybe they'll be allowed to do some competitive play. But right now, the Little League's coming back, and again, non-competitive, but it's some good news for Half Moon Bay. It's some really great news for the community and the youth, and we've been working really hard with them to try to make sure they're set up for success, and they have a good season. And lastly, Matthew kind of touched on it a little bit. The county is now bringing the vaccine sites to Half Moon Bay. So the rec department has been tapped to step in and help out with that. Like Matthew had mentioned, we're handling a lot of the phone calls, the registrations, the information for folks in the community. And that's probably what we'll be busy with for the next, I would say, month or so. That'll be a large item put on our docket of tasks and responsibilities, is helping out with that as much as we can. So that's all I have for my updates today. If you have any questions.
Anything else, Hillary?
Yeah, I had a question about during the Poplar Beach project conversations with the community. There was like a large discussion about beach volleyball courts during that project, and while I'm not gonna like speak to whether or not those courts end up at Poplar Beach, I would like to know what could be done to help. This is another project that's like completely outdoors, perfect timing for entertaining people during coronavirus. what would need to be done to at least identify, if it's not Poplar Beach, a place where we could put in beach volleyball courts? And I wonder if the city's thinking about this or at all. And because I know that I don't think there's an organized group of people like Friends of the Friends group that I'm now completely blanking on the full name, Friends of Half Moon Bay Recreation, that's on this call. I think that we could definitely get some money matched to get beach volleyball courts out there. So I'm wondering what's happening with that.
I'm happy to answer that question. So yeah, it's been a topic of discussion for several years now, and Commissioner Eisen, when he was on the city council, is something he pushed really hard for. And yes, there was some discussion about it as part of the Poplar Gateways project.
Yes.
At the time, we were not looking at doing anything on the beach. I think the tides at Poplar Beach are such that it wouldn't be feasible. So then there was a talk of doing it on the bluff tops, and unfortunately, there's environmental issues there that it's probably zero chance. At the Poplar Bluffs, the land behind the parking lot is county owned, and it's a former landfill that nobody can develop until they do their remediation, and I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. And then everything north of the parking lot is that city-owned property, is all protected habitat and will be used for bluff retreat and moving the trail and all that. Our city manager is very, very invested in finding a location for some volleyball courts. He's pitched 3 or 4 times since he's arrived here to state parks about using some of their underutilized parking lots or other facilities, just allow the city to come in and operate. We have not gotten a lot of play there. So I think the biggest question, and you brought that point up, is first identifying a feasible location. And then I think it is something that the community would probably rally behind and move forwards, because I think there's a lot of people in the community that want to see it happen. Yes. Finding a location is difficult. I don't believe that the city owns any property that at this time could be converted to that use. And so it's finding other public property or a private property owner that'd be willing to lease the property or allow the use of the property to the city or another agency. So if that's something that is important to you, we'd love to work with you and see if you might be able to turn some stones over that we haven't already turned over.
Okay.
What about the old dump?
The one south of the Poplar parking lot?
Yeah.
That's the one nothing can be developed there until the county does remediation on the landfill site.
Right.
And we've pushed them on that issue several times, and I don't foresee that coming to the top of the county's priorities anytime soon based on our conversations with them. A landfill remediation is a $100 million project probably. And so they don't have a lot of incentive to do that on that site. Not be 100 million, but it's tens of millions probably.
It's interesting that people are allowed to just hang out there and wander around, and if it's actually dangerous, but I would just we'll drop that for now.
There's a difference between how dangerous it actually is and the legal requirements they have to go to before they can legally develop it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. There's lots of properties where kids will build a pump track or, do some, people create some informal trails, and that's all good. As soon as the city wants to go and build something officially, now it's a 15-year project through, the Coastal Commission and all kinds of permitting agencies. And I think that's the issue we're running into there.
Yeah. Okay. So I did wonder about 3 different spots. I know there's this one spot on Seymour where there's the eucalyptus grove that I believe there's some city-owned land there, and I was kind of curious about that. Although it's
called Magnolia Park.
Yeah, it's in a neighborhood, so it's clearly a pocket park type situation. So I don't know what communities would the community would think about that. Some people would probably love that it's close and walkable for their kids. Other people might not. But then I was also remembering that this new post acquisition, and I know you said that it was mostly or almost exclusively passive use, but I was very curious about something like beach volleyball where you have 2 posts and some sand per court, and it's 25 feet by 50 feet. They're not huge. So I was just curious if that qualifies as active use in the same way that building a soccer field would count as clearly active?
Yeah, any sort of sports facility would be considered active use.
Okay.
Frisbee golf would be considered active use. And I don't think we want to rule any of that stuff out in the very long term. But we first have to master plan the site and create the corporation yard out there. And then as part of the master planning process, identify, okay, here's where passive, outdoor open space, dog walking and hiking can take place. Here's maybe some portions of that property that could be reserved for future consideration as active recreation. But that's a total change of use. That's a long-term project. So I don't think we would see that anytime in the next 5 years.
Okay. Okay.
But this is the kind of thinking that is going to have to happen in order to find that spot. And I think it does have to go farther than city-owned property. Most of the properties the city owns, we own it because there was some sort of deal done to protect it from development. So usually there's use restrictions on the properties we own. But there's other properties out there for sure.
All right, I do think Hillary brings up an important thing. You know that I, of course, was also very enthusiastic about the idea of beach volleyball, having played it and been around it for years and years and years, and I see it everywhere I travel. Any beach I go to, whether it's a lake or an ocean, it doesn't matter. There's beach volleyball happening, except in Half Moon Bay. So. Yeah.
It's so crazy to me.
So we've got Hillary. I know we've got Adam. There's at least 3 of us. I don't know about Luis, if he is enthusiastic about this or not.
Sign me up.
All right, sign you up. Good. So, so we've got at least 4 of us who are, the bulk of the commissioners who really want to see this happen. So we can all, by the way, when we get to the point where we're talking about future goals, that's where we can jump in, and this could be one of our future goals. Okay.
I was going to mention that, so thank you. Perfect.
Yeah, all right.
And just one last question. I was made aware of this project by Surfers Beach, that's San Mateo County project, to make that whole strip.
It's the Granada Recreation and Sanitation District.
Yeah.
So it's a separate, it's a special district, kind of like Montero Water and Sanitary District. It's not the county of San Mateo. It's a community district that is only the same footprint as the former sanitation, like sewer district in El Granada. So separate board.
Yeah. No, like partnership potentials or anything with happening.
Eddie's developed a relationship with them. I think there is some opportunity there down the road.
I think so too. I think that's you bring up a great thing. And I think that would be one of the things that would be good to have them come in, because they have their own recreation department that they created like 2 years ago from this sanitation, but it's part of that whole department. So it would be good to bring in those people that especially are involved in the parks and recreation aspect of it, and see where we might be able to work together or come up with some joint projects.
It'd be a brilliant location.
Yeah. Eddie, do you want to try to set something up for a future meeting with them? You've got a pretty good relationship with them at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Myself and Mike Perez, the director of the Pacifica Parks, Beach and Recreation, both sat on a panel with them a few weeks ago. They just wanted to pick our brain and find out what our community centers do, what they're like, especially our situation where we kind of came in and started a new recreation department, basically, because that's what they're doing.
Right.
So yeah, we've got some really great relationships there already. Pat Tierney, who's a professor of recreation and tourism at San Francisco State, he's on their board, and I know him pretty well. So he would, I guarantee, be more than welcome to come and chat with us and work on some partnerships.
Yeah, great.
Good stuff.
Okay, so we are now up to the Parks Master Plan implementation update.
Just a couple items on this, and the good news is probably in the next couple months you'll stop getting this report from me, and we'll have Public Works back and sharing as they get to start working on some projects again. So Frenchman's Creek we've already covered. Again, the hope is that the funds will be raised and that project can go forward in the next 6 months or so. two pieces of good news. So as we move towards our mid-year budget update, which will be on March 16th, things are looking pretty good. The city's finances have stabilized. Things have been better than we projected. You know, we were really, really conservative going into COVID and into this year's budget. And so Public Works expects to be able to bring a couple of their capital projects back that were put on hold back in July. And so two of them are starting to work on the Poplar Gateways project again. That's a big multi-year project that is really ripe for grant funding once it's kind of the planning and the environmental work are completed. There's probably some really great opportunities for grants out there. And so they want to get that moving again so that they can position themselves for grants here in the future. And so we're hoping they'll be able to restart that. And then several of you will be happy to hear that the other main project that will likely be picked up here soon, and then it'll still probably be the fall before construction can begin, but the parallel path on Poplar Street. This is the bike and pedestrian path that runs parallel to Poplar Street between Ocean and the parking lot and the coastal trail. I'm sorry, Ocean Railroad and the coastal trail. It's in really bad shape. It was a high priority going into COVID that was going to get done probably last spring, and it was put on hold. The plan is to move that project forward. Unfortunately, timing-wise, because there's some environmental work that has to happen, it will not be done for this summer and the summer crowds, but hopefully as things die down towards the end of summer, we can start construction on that.
Sorry, the parallel path, where?
It's a bike and pedestrian path that runs parallel to Poplar Street between Railroad and the Ocean.
It's the path you walk down from Railroad down to the beach.
Oh, okay, got it, yes.
And it's to Chair Ison's point, it's not 10 feet wide like some other cities have. It's pretty cracked and beat up, and it's been maintained in spots, but it's time to rebuild it in a really long-term and sustainable way. And again, that was a big hope going into 2020, and then that had to be set aside. So excited to see that hopefully moving forward. And then as we get closer to the budget, Public Works will come. They will talk about the capital improvement list and how we prioritize it and get some feedback from all of you before they go to the council for recommendations for funding for the next fiscal year. So for those of you that don't know, our city budget is on a fiscal year cycle, not a calendar year cycle. And our fiscal year runs from July 1 to June 30th of each year. So we're in fiscal year 2020-21 right now, and it ends June 30th of this year. The budget kicks off in March, and we go to the council. We will have a couple of, and I should have announced this earlier on, I apologize. We are going to hold listening sessions. The marketing is just getting rolled out right now. One next Wednesday night, and one a week from then, Saturday during the day. And then there will be a priority setting session to talk about council priorities and make any adjustments to those sometime in March. We're still nailing down a date for that. And then part of that process is developing a capital improvement plan. That's all the capital projects that Public Works will be working on for the next fiscal year. And so this commission will advise, especially on recreation related projects, and how to prioritize those. So, and then normally Public Works comes and gives this report, but since Public Works, the CIP projects have been put on hold for a year, I've been doing the updates on the few things that they're still working on.
Matthew,
yes.
I just wanted to say, I don't know who did this. I don't know if it was our trash company, Republic, or if it was us ourselves, but somebody finally put up, and it's beautiful, the wood structure at Poplar Beach around the dumpster. I think it just looks so much better. I'm so appreciative. It looks dramatically different. And I'd love to still even figure out a way to do the other two the same way. But excellent start, excellent, beautiful change.
Public Works did that. I'll let them know how much you appreciate it. I know you were pretty instrumental in pushing for some of that this year. And I've already heard that now that it's up and we see how great it is, there's plans to do more of that in the parking lot, maybe around the porta potties and additional dumpster. And then the other thing that I heard today is the dumpsters at Poplar, which are a necessary eyesore, just given the amount of traffic we have down there. We're working with Republic to actually do kind of the vehicle wraps that you see, to actually wrap the dumpsters in some really nice looking graphics to just kind of blend them into the scenery and make them not quite the eyesore that they've been in the past. So lots of planning going into the upcoming good weather, and we're just expecting to absolutely be bombarded by our friends from over the hill. And you'll see over the coming months a lot of planning going into that, how we can address that better. Because I think that's the new normal.
Remember, Matthew, let's make sure that everyone knows when something good happens. I don't even know what Adam's referring to. I haven't been down there to see. So again, let's make sure that people in the community are aware of things that city is actually doing. Okay, because you want to toot that all the time. Whenever there's something to toot, let's toot it.
Well, it's funny because that's something that's so small that you might not even toot it, but I've already heard from a bunch of people how nice it looks, and and I see it myself. What a difference! And I'm just like, yeah, and it's probably a small thing that you might not even think to do, but it beautifies the area. It's much better. So I agree on that front.
Yeah, and Chair Eisen is right. We don't toot our horn enough. We kind of get the work done and we move on to the next project, but we do need to celebrate those victories.
Yeah, everything. So excuse me, let me, because I'll get the Hillary, that was Hillary. Okay. I just want to talk about Poplar a little bit. Have we made an assessment at all about any additional erosion that's happened over this winter? Because there are places that I passed the other day that kind of really looked scary because it's like right up against the path.
I'll have to ask. I'm not sure about that. That's Public Works, and I don't know if they've had discussions or not. I've been very focused on some other things, but I will definitely find out and let you know.
Okay. Hillary, did you have something?
Yeah. I have two questions now because your comment reminded me of something.
Okay.
First, I just was wondering if there is a plan to put back in at least some of the trash cans that are next to the trail so that when people are walking, like I think especially for our locals, the dumpsters are like out of the way for dog walkers. And so it's the removal of those trash cans, I personally feel on a daily basis, and I can't really think that I'm alone in that. So I'm just curious about that, like I'm not really clear on what happened with them or if there's a plan to put them back. Why? But yeah, what's
yeah, and I'm not clear where specifically are you talking about, so I can make sure I get the right
at Poplar Beach as well. There used to be like trash cans along the trail so that you could just throw things into the trash as you were walking. To the right, when you first get the trail,
right where the bike repair station is.
Where the bike stuff is,
yes,
and then as you walk south, at the end of the parking lot, there were also trash cans. And I mean, I know that they got very full, but it seems like the city has placed an emphasis on more trash collection efforts. And I would have thought that with that emphasis on getting there more quickly to pick up trash, that they wouldn't be allowed to overflow in that manner. And so I was curious why.
I can answer some of this, Matthew, and then you can fill it in, because I had to deal with this a lot last year as mayor. But basically, those trash cans, my sense is those trash cans have to be emptied by us, not Republic Services. So the dumpsters can be emptied by Republic Services, but then the trash cans need to be emptied by us. So just in terms of workload and the amount of time that those were filling and were overflowing and blowing into garbage all over the place was off the charts. at least during the summertime in particular. During the winter, we've got it under control. During the summer, and my thought process was, instead of having it blowing all over the place, and all these trash cans where people, I don't know if you kept noticing, people would put garbage next to the garbage cans.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Start blowing all over the place. And we couldn't get there as a city daily to be able to deal with it. And so that changed into the dumpster situation where I was like, all right, let's remove all these small ones. Let's get 3 big dumpsters, go that route, and kind of like, and since we went that route, the amount of garbage that is in the area has just gone down so much, even during the summer when we had that. So to me, it was kind of just the lesser of the evils at that point, because it is, you have to, for me, I find it inconvenient. I want to drop the garbage right there, and I have to walk around the corner, and it's usually my dog, poop at that point, because I've walked the trail, picked it up, and then I have to walk it around the corner. But again, just in terms of the volume that we're dealing with during the summer, we just can't keep up with a smaller garbage can. So that was my perspective, and now I'll hear what everybody else thinks and go from there.
No, it's super helpful. And if it's decreasing the trash, that's also really helpful to know.
I do know that there are plans during the summer, as we're making our plans for the inundation that is surely in front of us to kind of deal with that. We're thinking about rolling carts and other things that are easier to empty more frequently. But to the commissioner's point, much like we have a recreation department right now that's 2 people, we have a public works maintenance team of 4, and they maintain the entire city, and that's it's always that balance between convenience and our ability to respond. So, but I will share those comments with Public Works, because I know that they're working on a plan to strategically place maybe the bigger rolling carts, other places that can still be serviced by a machine more quickly, as opposed to an individual having to pull smaller bags out. And so I think that's important feedback that I'll share with them. Thank you.
Yeah, but along those lines, though, and I don't know if it's because it might not be able to hold it, but could the dumpsters be moved, the other 2, to the area where we had those big, what were they called? The big
bellies?
Compactors?
The big bellies.
Because there's a concrete strip there already, and you could put 2 of them on there, and then they could easily still access them because there's the gate. They open it up, they go in there, and then they leave. So but that seems like a really good. Yeah, it can't be done.
The trucks can't go out on the bluff.
That's the thing. Okay.
Oh, right, because it's too fragile. Yep.
Okay. Go ahead, Hillary. Hillary had one more thing, I think.
Yes, so with the coastal trail and erosion was mentioned, and I just wondered, especially because the Poplar Beach project is moving forward, if we wanted to try to have some kind of special group that actually just focuses on the coastal trail specifically, so that there's people really thinking about forward planning and how this project is going to connect to other areas of the coastal trail. Like there's coastside land trust planning, extensions of the coastal trail to the south. I think it's so important that we're focusing on the coastal trail as just a completely valuable resource. And I wonder what we could do to help just really put some focus on that in the long term, and if that would be like a special group or subgroup of this, or how that would work, because I'm new to this. So
I think, again, it's probably a good one to put on our goal, on the goal, if that's where everyone wants to go with that. But I agree with you 100%. So I'm in, but let's look at that when we get to the goals.
It's certainly something I'd want to have a conversation with Public Works. That's their project. I don't know what kind of planning and support that they have, but certainly they've done. There was a special committee for the bridge, the Main Street Bridge. That happens on occasion, and so they may have something like that planned for the Poplar Gateways project. And I do want to be clear: both the Poplar Gateways and the Poplar Parallel Path is something we're going to recommend to the council to bring back. It won't be decided until they've gone through and evaluated it. So it's something we're hopeful for.
Okay,
Great. I just want to, before we finish, Matthew, with you, I want to, even though it sort of moves a little bit into the next thing, you mentioned Frenchman's Creek. I believe that we really should set a timeline on this. And if we can get the money raised fully by the Friends of Parks and Rec, that's great. And if we can't, we need to look at what the city might need to do to help subsidize. But I think that we need a timeline. And so that we know, and the people of Frenchman's Creek know, that this equipment is going to go in by June 1st, whatever it is, but that we have a timeline and that we don't just leave it in this kind of vague, if it happens, if we can do it, maybe, yes, no. No, we need to have this done. We've got the equipment, it's been around for months and months. It needs to go in, and we need to make sure that that happens.
Well, on that topic, I believe, and I'd love to get Carolyn's input again. I know she's involved in the community. I don't know if she's still listening, but I don't know what type of communication we've done. I didn't even know there was a Frenchman Creek Homeowners Association, but apparently there is one. And I don't know what kind of communication we've done as a department with them to inform them, A, but B, let them know what fundraising efforts we might need, because that could speed up the process as well. But then also, I'm sure our city council would support funding this if we brought it to them and said, here's what we need to make this happen. Let's go. And we put the timeline across it. I'm pretty sure between city council, the homeowners association, if we work that, and the Friends, we should be able to get the money very quickly to make this happen. And to me, it's a very high priority considering we have all the equipment. Back to, what Hillary and everybody, it's like, if we're talking about getting people outside and back into playing and all the various things, it couldn't be the pocket park that's sitting there that we were supposed to finish. Is kind of like, it's got to be one of the highest priority things we can possibly deal with, and then move on accordingly. So I don't know. Do you guys want to answer, or should we talk about?
I think that's a perfect segue to.
Yes.
I think that's a perfect segue to Maria's report that will probably answer most of those questions.
Okay, cool.
I think Carolyn, though, has, and I would be interested in getting her comment now that Adam has spoken. Carolyn, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, and thank you for your support on this, Paula. We do have a homeowners association. It's actually it's an all volunteer, very low key. We ask people to pay $80 a year, $40 a year rather, and it's totally voluntary. In some, it's a low budget operation, but we do coordinate on park maintenance items. We coordinate with the public works staff on that kind of stuff, and that's why I feel kind of bad, because they haven't really been given any information to communicate to the neighborhood. So we can certainly help reach out to the neighborhood, because I think they're very puzzled. People are puzzled in general about the sign that showed up in the park without any background. So.
Excellent. Well, I'm so glad you're here tonight, because there's nothing like having somebody from the actual neighborhood that we're dealing with here to talk to us. Yeah. And I'm sure Maria from the Friends of Parks and Rec is going to be very excited about contacting you and working with you to, to further this thing, because we, as I say, we want to see this happen. This is a little bit nuts for it not to happen faster, but we want to make it happen. So let's get a timeline and let's continue on this project. Thank you so much, Carolyn. Sure. All right, so let us go on now to Maria and get that update from the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Recreation.
Okay, excellent. Is Carolyn still here? Did she leave? I don't see her now. Anyway, yes, I will.
She's still here. She just
great. Carolyn, I'm so excited you're here, actually, and I would love to connect. So I will shoot my my email out after this, and I would love to connect with you directly about this. so we can work together really well and get things moving, because we really are in gear up mode at this point. So at the last meeting, we talked about this a little bit. We are still waiting to kind of like finalize the MOU, but the group kind of moved forward without it, even though we had said we were kind of waiting on it to really kick up fundraising. But the group is excited about this. Like we just talked about, like, we don't want to see this not happen. We are very excited. So anyway, so we have already started some fundraising. The banners did go up. I've been working with Eddie on this. We actually have drafted a postcard that's going to also go out to everyone in Frenchman's Creek in the next couple of weeks, talking about it. Just a small postcard sending to the website. There's a ton of info on the website explaining everything we've been talking about. So hopefully people will go there. And then I've actually started reaching out to people that I know in the community in Frenchman's Creek so that they can help me connect. So this is just perfect tonight. But we want to make sure we're talking to everyone. We actually just met this week. Sharzad and I met earlier this week and talked about it a lot. We're going to do a small focus group to make sure our messaging is point on, to make sure we're talking about it in the right way, to make sure things are sounding the way they need to. So I'm hoping Carolyn may want to be a part of that. But anyway, so it's really going to be a chance for us just to do a quick communication with a group of a small group of people, just to make sure we're spot on. We've applied for a couple of grants. So I love when Adam mentioned grants earlier. So Adam, if you want to send grants to me, feel free always, because as the nonprofit arm, happy to work on those kind of things. I've been working with Matthew on a couple of things. It's not going to stop. We're going to keep going to try and get funds for this and things in the future. And also, as the nonprofit, working with you guys, we really need to build some strong relationships with different foundations and things in the area. So this is a good chance for something smaller, for something bigger down the road for Carter Park or whatever it might be. So feel free. If you guys come across opportunities that you think could be good, send them to me. I'll look at them, and if I can make it work for something with Parks and Recs, or if you have an idea, I'm happy to look at it, because we have a number of different priorities that we've talked about with Matthew and Eddie. Happy to talk about ideas and ideas as we move forward. We also are just laying out, like I said, we're kicking off, we're gearing up, we're getting everything ready for Coastside Gives on May 6th, because that is going to be our big focus as Frenchman's Creek on May 6th. That's really what we're going to be pushing. We've actually already raised just under $6,000. So we are, we've kicked it off. We're moving along. If you go to the website, we have a thermometer there already. Okay. And we are talking about what that's going to look like in the parks and things, like a thermometer, where we're going to have one. We're just starting to talk about those kind of things. But yes, the timeline, we've been saying all along that we want to be done with this by June. I'm hoping, originally we had said March, but then, things just, it is what it is. But we're hoping by June we're done with this as well. We don't know for sure, obviously. But I like what you're thinking, Paulette, about the idea of just having a timeline, because we've had that conversation in the development committee in different places too. Like, well, we can't just be like, hey, we're not moving along. Like, we need to be able to say to people, like, this is going to happen. So it's good. So Matthew, I'll circle with you about that as well at some point in the near future. Anyway, I mentioned Coastside Gives already. We have also, I know I've been mentioning this off and on, but we've been kind of finalizing. I know I've been just over a year now. I've been working with friends. And I came in and started implementing some policies and having them create policies on things, because we just, it was that point for the organization. So we are actually creating some really good policies now, which I'm very happy about, which makes things more transparent as an organization, which is what we need. So I'm excited. At the next board meeting, we're going to have a few that we talk about, and we'll go from there. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is that we are still renewing memberships. So we are always doing memberships for the organization. It's something that they had implemented before I came on. It's $25. It's a tax deductible gift. It's to keep people connected to the organization. The other thing I wanted to also mention, just when you were saying it, that tooting and talking about the great things, we can act as a communication arm as well, and we're happy to do that. We're always looking to find ways to connect to the community You know, we have Facebook following. We have a pretty good Facebook following, you know, with a couple different groups, because they have the pool group they created before I came in. They have just the friends group as well. Like, so we're happy to talk about the great things going on in Park and Rec. So, you know, coming to these meetings, I'll know more what's going on. But if there's special things you want me to promote, we have an email list we can send out to. So anyway, just wanted to put it out there as we were talking about it. I was thinking about it that, you know, all of you are listening to all these meetings too. If you think, hey, you know, don't hesitate. I'm going to put my email in, but don't hesitate to shoot me an email that just says, hey, Maria, this is something that they were talking about last night. I really think you should think about promoting it. And I'll see what I can do. So that's my update in a nutshell. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, great. I just have one suggestion for you that I really think the Friends of the Library do very well, which is that when they get the people to sign up for membership, they have a thing where, like, I'm a member of the Half Moon Bay Park Friends of the Library.
Yeah.
And, you know, every year, come January, I get a notice that $25 was deducted from my PayPal account or whatever it was, because it's automatic.
Oh.
Automatic renewal. Nothing better in the world when it comes to nonprofits.
Yeah. That's good. A good idea, actually.
Okay, yeah. So that this way people don't have to think about it. You know, your membership will be automatically renewed unless you tell us otherwise.
That's a really great idea. Thanks, Paula. I'll make a note and look into that, because the way that was set up in the beginning, anyway, it doesn't matter, but that's a great idea. Thank you. I'll look into it.
All right, very good.
Anything else? Any other ideas?
No, but we do. Yeah, we do need to talk about the timeline on Frenchman's Creek, because again, Matthew, just like with the library, you know, even the Friends of the Library didn't even give their money, you know, until like later. Like, in other words, we shouldn't, like, Coastside Gives happens in May. That's late, especially if we're looking for like some significant donations for this project. But it doesn't mean that beforehand the city should not be moving ahead with getting whatever you need, whoever's going to put that equipment in. If you need to put out, you know, something about who's going to do it, you know, then it should be done. Like, in other words, we shouldn't be waiting on this.
And we're not. We have a contractor lined up. They're revising their estimate for the Friends so that they know exactly how much we need.
Perfect. Okay, great. All right, so let's go on with the Carter Park update.
Hey, wait, real quick before we go on. I did put, and I'll send it, Maria, maybe to you directly, but I put in the chat box earlier this evening, it's a $15,000 grant. It's www.outrightbike.org, Outride Fund. I put it in the chat box at about 652, if that helps you find where it is. And it's just a $15,000 matching grant for pretty much anything bicycle related projects. So, you know, if you want to do even education, which we've so many people are mountain biking right now and out, and my kids are part of this whole bike group now, and biking has just become a big...
the Poplar Pathway, the Poplar Gateway, the Poplar Pathway, that's all about biking. I mean, you'd have to read through this, but it's a pretty simple grant. It's pretty small, $15,000 matching. So we need to come up with $15,000 to match, but that's basically it. It seems like a pretty easy way to get $15,000. So it's there. That's the grants. That's the one I was mostly curious about. I don't think, I'm not looking at the big stuff per se. This is just small, easy pickings. Okay, let's move on to the Carter Park update.
Great. Let me see if I can share my screen. I've got a presentation. Jonathan, can you enable screen sharing, and I'll give a little context. So the Carter Park project is something that the city's been working on under the direction of the City Council for several years. It's been about a year and a half since we've done update to the Rec Commission directly. And obviously many of you are new to this group, so we thought it'd be important to share with you a background and kind of an update on it. And we're also getting ready to submit a very big grant application for that. And so the timing is good just to get you up to speed, and there may be a need for some support from you as we move forward with that. So cool. I am sharing my screen.
We can use that $15,000 if we could get it for Carter Park, for bike racks, for, you know, for making sure that there's a good way to access Carter Park in the future, because we don't want everyone coming in with their cars. That's for sure.
That's great. Thank you. That's a good thought. So John L. Carter Memorial Park, first and foremost, not everybody knows where this park is located. This is a city-owned park that everybody can see my presentation on the screen now?
Yes.
Okay. It's a city-owned park located on Main Street, just to the northeast of the Main Street Bridge in downtown. The Stone Pine Shopping Center has buildings on the north side and a parking lot on the south side. This park is in the floodplain down below the parking lot between the creek and the parking lot. And it has historically been used for people just to passively eat lunch at some of the office buildings around there, or if they're picking up food from the restaurants. There is an area there that is converted each September, August and September by the Shakespeare Society to put on performing arts during the fall. And over the last 3 years, it's also been utilized for our Summer's End concert series, a music festival event each September. And when the city embarked on the parks master plan that was adopted in January of 2019. One of the things it did is it looked at the individual parks that we already have and the amenities that we have and identified opportunities to improve our parks and to add additional amenities to our park system to benefit the community. And for John L. Carter Memorial Park, it was recommended that it be turned into a first-class cultural events park for performances and summer camps. And so some of the recommended improvements in the master plan were protecting the habitat because the creek is adjacent to the south side of that property, as well as the habitat that is always adjacent to Pillars Creek. Building a permanent stage and support area rather than the temporary stages and rented stages that are currently used. Building seating and amphitheater. There's a natural amphitheater shape to the property, but the way it's landscaped and designed right now, we can't take advantage of that. And so turning that into a permanent amphitheater, and then adding lighting and signage to improve people's access to the site from Main Street. Because again, many people don't know it exists. You know, I grew up in the community. It was built while I was still living here in my youth, and I didn't know it existed until just a few years ago. And so it's important for us to make it more accessible to the community from Main Street. So in 2019, the City Council prioritized this as the master plan project that they wanted to see move forward. And so we worked with an architect to start conceptualizing what this facility could look like. And we came to the Recreation Commission at the time and we talked through what kind of amenities would we want and what were some of the feelings that were evoked here. And our current chair reminded us that we have this great Stern Grove facility up in San Francisco, and that was something we could emulate on a very small scale for our community. And so at one point, several commissioners came with staff and our architect, and we toured that site and we got some ideas together. And this is kind of a rendering of what we think could happen there at Carter Park. Once the project officially kicked off, there's a lot of technical requirements in this kind of a development. And so working with the community development and public works departments, we hired geotechnical engineers to make sure that the site itself could support the kind of facilities we wanted to build. It needed what's called a biological resources evaluation, which is where a biologist looks at the property, looks at the adjacent habitat, looks at the species and the plants that exist there to make sure that any kind of a development wouldn't have negative impacts on the environment at that site. Obviously, an architect was hired to help us with the design process and developing the construction plans for this. And then anytime a government agency in California wants to develop property, we have to go through what's called a CEQA process. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. There was a lot of community outreach done for this property in this project. It really kicked off in September of 2018 as we started to move towards the planning. Conceptual drawings were done, and they were shown at a table at the Summer's End Music Festival, where we had hundreds and hundreds of people coming through that property, enjoying music, enjoying performances, and they could start to see what it could become. The response was really, really positive. A few months later, we held a workshop with Parks and Rec to talk about some different designs and options that could be used on this site, and ultimately landed on the design I'll show you tonight. In June of 2019, staff did outreach to some of the stakeholders, including the Cypress Cove neighborhood. Those are the condos that are on Stone Pine Road, and they're impacted by any events going on there due to traffic, noise, lighting, and just more people being in that area. The Mariners Church, which is adjacent to the property and has interest in potentially using the development in the future to hold camps and other things. And then, of course, reaching out to the performing arts groups to make sure anything that was developed there would really provide a space for them to do their performances and to create more opportunities for performing arts in the community. That summer, we also went to the City Council for an update and their feedback before finalizing the plans. And then a Planning Commission study session was held in July of 2019 to review the conceptual plans. And a lot of comments came out of that to really refine the plan and make sure it met planning needs and environmental needs. And then I think the most important meeting was held in December of last year. And that was that CEQA process came to a head. The consultants presented their studies and their findings, and the Planning Commission reviewed all of that and approved what's called a mitigated negative declaration, which means that with changes and tweaks to the plan and to programming and operations there, it would have minimal impacts on the community and on the environment. And that goes through a review process. We're through that process. There is a few items that are going back to the Planning Commission next month to refine and tweak what was presented in December. It doesn't change any of the details. It just gets on record what it will actually look like. There's some renderings that we're going to be sharing with them. And so this project is pending that final look from the Planning Commission in March, is completely entitled, which is a huge step because it means that we can actually build this thing if we're able to pull together the funding. And it means that we can finalize the drawings. Now, I talked about all the outreach that took place. This is just a table that shows you all the different organizations and groups that we consulted. Some of those that I didn't mention, we consulted the Sheriff's Office on this to make sure that we address safety and security concerns out there. We reached out, it's not on this list, but we also reached out to the county and another group on ADA concerns because we want to make sure this site and this facility is completely accessible to anybody, including those with disabilities and to seniors in our community. And so the final design incorporates comments and feedback we heard from that community. And we're really excited about what this is going to look like. There was also a community survey held in the summer of 2019. And the preferences we heard where we want more musical and performing arts taking place there. We want places to relax and have picnics, and they wanted a playground. And so a playground has been incorporated into the design, and that will help activate this park on a more regular basis, not just for performances. Some of the concerns we heard from the community, both through the survey and the outreach process, concerns about parking. There's not a lot of parking there. The Stone Pine Shopping Center is really, that parking lot is serving the shopping center there. We do, through individual agreements on a case-by-case basis, have access to the parking lot at Mariners Church and the Stone Pine Business Park, which is behind the facility. And same situation with the post office, who has allowed us to use their parking lot for events outside of their business hours. So one of the things we did during this process is community development conducted a parking study on the downtown area. And it's, if you're interested, we can provide you some more details. It's pretty technical about how you kind of go in concentric circles in a distance from the location, and you look at the amount of parking and the flow of parking during different peak periods. And the findings of this traffic study were that there is plenty of parking within walking distance of this facility to serve the needs basically during any event, during any activity outside of the Pumpkin Festival. That was the one event that yes, we don't have parking for events at the same time. Traffic was part of that process, and making sure that we aren't bringing additional amounts of traffic down Stone Pine Road. Noise was a concern. A noise study was conducted to ensure that both the environment and the habitat and the animals, as well as the people living in adjacent communities, wouldn't be adversely impacted by the noise. Trash is always an issue, as we've talked about tonight, and so additional trash facilities have been included in the project planning. And then we have had a history of homeless encampments along Pillars Creek in that area. And what we found is that activation of this park, the more it's used, the less people find it desirable to live there. And so ultimately, especially working with the Sheriff's Office, we've determined that these improvements would actually help prevent new homeless encampments in that area. So the design elements that are in the plan that I'm going to show you tonight include a new amphitheater with terrace seating built into the natural hillside, a new stage with a storage space and changing room on the back of it to really meet the needs of the performing arts groups, a children's playground area adjacent to the stage that would be available for use outside of performance times so that the community would enjoy this park and it would have utility for the community all the time. A picnic area as well for the same purposes. Something really great is a restroom and concession stand building. You know, a park is hard for people to use if they don't have access to restrooms and a water fountain. And so that's been incorporated into this, especially for the larger performances. And then really improving park access for ADA and for maintenance. And then of course, really improving the Main Street access so that people know it's there and know how to get there. We've also incorporated a nature trail on this site that one is really nice because it's near the creek and it meanders through the redwoods that are there. But we also, working with the History Association, believe that we can provide some information about the Ohlone Indian populations that previously had lived in this area and utilized Pillars Creek for a lot of their life and the way that they live their lives here. And so it's a great opportunity for that. And then just upgrading the landscaping and lighting in a way that will reduce maintenance, but keep this park looking really nice in the future. So this is a conceptual plan that is now at about 90% complete for construction drawings. So I do want to make clear when I talk to you tonight, what we're looking for at the end is some of your work and help in grant opportunities. The design is done. It's been through several years of review and refinement, and this is the finalized design that's just being worked over by engineers and architects to get it to 100% construction drawings. Can you see my arrow here on the screen as I'm sharing? No? Okay. I'll use the numbers then to describe what the different areas are. So if we start in the upper left-hand part of the screen, number one, that is the corner of Main Street that is kind of the entryway into the Stone Pine Shopping Center. And as it follows along too, that's the walking trail that takes you to the back of the park and ultimately to Mariners Church and the business park that's back there. Right now, it's an okay trail. People find their way down it all the time, but it really doesn't get you too excited about what you're going to find in Carter Park, which really is a beautiful gem. And so the idea is to really improve the signage there and make it really welcoming and make it really clear that we've got this great facility available for the community and for visitors to use. And then the path will just be redeveloped to make it match what we're doing and aesthetically and hopefully provide better access for people from an ADA standpoint and people riding bikes. Number 3 is the bike parking area. We have plans for many, many bike racks, and maybe we can get some of those funded through this grant that we've been made aware of tonight. And that would be fantastic. We found through our events that we need a lot of bike parking. Our Summer's End Music Festival, which the last one we held in 2019, had over 1,000 people attend throughout the day. And we have some really awesome pictures of just dozens and dozens and dozens of bikes, people from the community riding their bikes down to enjoy the music. And so we want to make sure we can accommodate those. Number 4 is the roof of the restroom and concession facility. So the access to the restroom will be at the park grade level, not at the parking lot level. So as you go from that line that kind of wraps around the number 3 in between 8 and 3, that's kind of the top of the grade. And everything from there goes downhill towards the park, which is probably about 30 feet below the parking lot. And that's what creates that natural amphitheater. So the concession and restrooms from the park level provide men's and women's restrooms. I think we've actually switched to 2 non-gender specific restrooms to accommodate everybody, as well as a small concession area where concessions could be sold during music events and performing arts events. On top of that will be a nice platform where anybody can go and enjoy an outlook over the park, but it also could provide some nice seating during a performance for people in wheelchairs or who have other mobility issues that don't want to make their way all the way down into the park. So it'll be a really nice feature. And I believe it's also because there's some venting for the restrooms. There will be some landscaping there, and the plan is to build kind of a memorial and some signage about John L. Carter, who's one of the founding fathers of the city and the namesake of this park. Number 5 is another wheelchair accessible viewing area specifically for people in wheelchairs to be able to enjoy the different activities at the park. 6 is a concept that is what we call an ad alternate, which means as we get into this project, if we get funding or somebody wants to make a donation, it'd be kind of a slide that's built into the hill for the kids to be able to move from the top to the bottom as kind of a park feature. And it leads down to area 13, which is where the playground would go. And the playground hasn't been designed. We have some concept drawings, but that's something we would design as one of the phases of the project with community input as we move forward. 11 and 7 are the ADA accessible path that one brings vehicles down to the site for prepping for events, but also allows us to maintain the property. But most importantly, I think it provides ADA access to the park amenities down below, including the restrooms. 14 is the lawn area. And that was a feature that was really something our commission really wanted to see, was a place where people could put a blanket out or a lawn chair out and enjoy the music in front of the stage, or even better is get up and dance in front of the stage. It's something that people like to do at our concerts, and to make sure we had a dedicated area for that. Below 14, going up the hill, that's terrace seating for about 200 people to sit and watch the events, and they would be probably an artificial turf on top. The maintenance of grass would be prohibitive, so it'd probably be artificial turf and then concrete walls on the front, and they'd be built in a way that they could fit a lawn chair, or someone could comfortably just sit on those stairs and enjoy the events down below. 15 is the new stage area, and that was designed in consultation with our architectural consultant who specializes in theaters and outdoor theaters, and in consultation with the theater groups and the performing arts groups to make sure we had a large enough stage area that they could really do what they need to. I'll show you a picture of what that stage looks like on a future slide, but it's set up so that it can be covered during inclement weather or uncovered during the good weather times. We want to have a lot of flexibility there. And then 16 is just a small changing area where props could be stored and people could go and change costumes behind the stage. 18 is the picnic area. Very simple, just a couple of barbecues and picnic tables on decomposed granite. And that would allow people, again, to barbecue and picnic at the park. And ultimately, people could use that during a performance as well. And then 12 is the nature path that would go through the redwoods, really provide that connection to nature and allow people to enjoy the creek. One thing you'll see behind the stage is the dotted black line. You'll see it kind of swoops around the whole bottom part of the park. That is a buffer area. So under the law, there's a certain distance from the creek itself that is considered sensitive habitat that can't be newly developed. And so as you'll see, all of the real improvements on this are outside of that area. And that was a strict requirement of the code and of the Planning Commission. There's some parking and access improvements that fall in that area, but those are acceptable and existing. So they'll just be upgraded. And then a nature trail is something that can always be developed in those riparian areas as long as they're done in a way that doesn't disturb the wildlife. So we're really excited about this design. I wonder if anybody has any questions before I move to the next part of this presentation.
I don't have a question, but I wanted, well, actually I do have one question and one comment that I love the slide. I love the slide. It's covering the performance area. Wouldn't the audience also be needing shelter from inclement weather? And I'm wondering then if there's like temporary tent or something that would help with that. If they are buildings like post holders or something in to do.
There's not anything like if it was raining, there wouldn't be any way to protect the audience. The engineering it would take to kind of cantilever something out over the seats would be prohibitive. Okay. But there is another alternate in this that would allow for some cantilevered shade structures that could be lined up. They'd be portable and they could be lined up at the top of the seating area and project out over the first couple of rows. And those could help protect from the sun, especially for like a morning performance and some inclement weather. But the ability to protect the audience was something we looked at, and it just, the way this is laid out and kind of just within the constraints of the project, we weren't going to be able to have a completely covered amphitheater seating. And it kind of worked against, how connected this really is to the environment and the natural surroundings.
And just to expand on that, so this is like a little mini Stern Grove, and of course Stern Grove does not have any covering, but they make sure that they do their concerts in the time period where the weather is going to be suitable, and they won't have to deal much at all with rain. It would be the issue. So that's what we're going to do too.
And then my last question is just around the Memorial of Carter. I am feeling a little sensitive about just wondering what point, I know nothing about this history, so I'm curious about the point in history that Carter came, as opposed to, in the relationship between the Ohlone people who were originally here, and sort of memorializing the later arrivers rather than the people who actually lived here. And it might be that there's no timeline in which they intersect, but and I know that there are places in Half Moon Bay where we talk about the original inhabitants of Half Moon Bay. I just am like, I hope that we're being really sensitive to the fact that there were original people here before Carter, and not sort of glorifying the later people and forgetting the original inhabitants.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's been on our radar for a while, but obviously has been amplified in the last year or so with all the movements across the country. So yes, there's no intersection here. John L. Carter, as a founding father, was the first mayor of Half Moon Bay, which was in 1959. So, there's no issue there, and this park is already named for him. And so we want to maintain that naming. But to your point, that's why we want the nature trail to really have an opportunity to educate people and inform people about the original individuals that lived here in this community. And I think we'll see more of that in the future as well.
Matthew, we might consider, are there any Ohlone still around? That's the first question.
So there's a group, go ahead.
And if there are, I love Hillary's input here on this, is to maybe have the opening ceremony to include, a blessing, a prayer, or whatever from these people.
I like it. Yeah, there's a group, a community group called Coastside Families Taking Action, and they've become really active in the community, and we work with them quite a bit. And I attended, oh gosh, maybe 5-6 months ago, a meeting, kind of an event they had one evening over Zoom, where they actually brought in a couple of Native Ohlone kind of ancestor or descendants that. Which are few and far between, unfortunately, but they're really working towards helping people identify that ancestry and kind of bring that group back out. And that's certainly somebody I think we would, working with the History Association, would consult in the programming and the information on the trail. But I also like the idea of involving them in more of this process as well.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. All right, so we're done with that. How many have you?
Well, let me just jump ahead really quick because I know we're.
I just wanted to ask one question when you said, does anyone have any questions? Has everyone seen this plan before, or is this new to people? And for those that it is new, what's your feedback on it?
It was new to me.
Yeah, we worked long and hard on this plan, different ideas, but then we came up with this as the best way to maximize the amount of people that we can accommodate in this space. So this is where we ended up. And it's just so exciting. I just wish it would happen already. But yeah, that's the deal. Okay.
Well, I'm happy to skip. I'm going to skip through these slides, and what I'll do is I'll PDF this and email it to all of you so you can see the other details. We've got some other renderings, materials. It's really meant to be a complement to the natural landscape, not an eyesore. And the renderings are pretty cool from the parking lot and other areas. You can't even tell it's there, which is great because you want it to blend in as much as possible. This, I think, is an important slide, budget estimates. So the design and pre-construction costs are a little over $1 million, which has already been spent on working with the architects and all the environmental and technical experts. The construction estimates, the most recent ones we've received, and we've developed this in phases because we believe it can be built in phases, and that may be the best way to move this forward so that you get a little bit of funding and you do a phase, and you get a little bit more and you do another phase. So the first phase is just doing all the site improvements and cleaning it up and building the amphitheater seating and the restroom building. And that's $2.5 million. And then the playground and picnic areas could be another phase separate of that, but subsequent to it. And that's estimated at about $270,000. And then the stage and support building and some of the other amenities are around $1.3 million. And then in any construction project, you always budget a contingency of about 10% for costs and materials changing and things. So that's another $415,000. And so the construction cost is estimated at $4.5 million. When you add in the design and pre-construction budget and the additional contingencies, the total budget for this is almost $6 million. Obviously, the city does not have that kind of money to spend on a park like this, and we're not likely to borrow $6 million to build a performing arts venue right now, unless we can justify it with lots of revenue, which I don't think that's the purpose of a facility like this. Obviously, revenues will help offset some of those costs, but really this is for the community. So when we look at funding this project, there's a couple of things. The phased approach is important because if we built just the site improvements and the amphitheater improvements, you could still rent a stage and put it where the permanent stage would be, and you'd have an incredible facility already. The picnic and playground areas are something that are good amenities, but are not necessary up front. They could be built later. Those could be built in phases within that phase. And we know that some of the community groups and businesses around that area are interested in supporting that financially because it's something that the church and the businesses could offer as amenities to people that go there. And then the stage and the support facility, we think, are a great opportunity for a naming opportunity. If somebody wanted, someone that was really into performing arts or some sort of foundation that's into performing arts could make a big donation, and we could potentially name in their honor. So that's why it's phased. Certainly, if we had $6 million, we've already been told that the whole thing could be built basically as soon as we finish one Summer's End concert at the end of September and have it ready for the next year's Shakespeare in the Park activities in August. So really excited, but there are some windows of time we have to work within. Our biggest opportunity right now is the Prop 68 statewide parks grant. We applied for it 2 years ago, but at that time, this was very conceptual and we just were not competitive. We are hoping that being shovel ready, we become much more competitive. We're also working with our state legislators and a lobbying firm to try to push for an opportunity for this here. So we're actually preparing to submit another application in March for this. There's multiple rounds of this grant. And then there are lots of performing arts grants that we're looking at. And I think to Commissioner Eisen's point, there's other ways to look at this, you know, that something to protect the habitat or to get the trail built, something to get bike facilities built. So there might be little piecemeal grant opportunities we can go after as well. We think fundraising, much like the library, is going to be really important. And our friends over at Friends of Half Bay Parks and Rec are committed to helping us with a significant fundraising campaign once this is shovel ready. And I think it'll need to include naming opportunities and recognition for large donors. And then I think there's some local donors that we're really going to have to push to make this happen because of the significant cost. I think supplementally, the city's general fund could help contribute, and potentially we could borrow. You know, interest rates are very low right now, but we really don't want to, you know, go out and borrow a lot of money for future development. It'd be great to get this done with community support and through grants so that the community can enjoy it and it doesn't create a long-term liability for the city. That's the end of my presentation. I know that was long, but this is a priority project for the council, and we're reaching a point where we can really start going after money. And that's going to be really, really key to getting this built. We know it's not going to happen overnight, but we're really excited to be at this point that we're at right now. So I'm happy to PDF that presentation and send it over. It looks like Commissioner Stamper has a question.
Yeah, well, I actually have two comments. One of them is there's a wonderful park in Palo Alto that has a very wide slide, and it is.
Is this the Magical Bridge Playground?
Maybe that's what it is.
Is it like a totally ADA accessible park?
I can't remember the name of the park anymore. It's my kids are too old now, and I have too few brain cells devoted to memory.
Okay.
But yeah, it is super popular, and one of the reasons that I think it's popular is because it's very wide, so kids can go down together. And I think this park is has amazing potential for a really fantastic slide. And given the fact that it's not going to be operating all the time as the theater, there will be times of year when it's empty. I think an awesome slide is enjoyable to people of all ages, and I think teenagers would enjoy it. And so I really encourage you guys to try to make this slide something really special. I would just really think about how to make that unique, because I think it could be a very important piece of the park. And then the second comment I wanted to make upon reflecting on the name Carter again, I guess, is I just want to say that this might be a unique point in time where it's an opportunity to say, what other heroes of Half Moon Bay do we have that are not white men? And think about other contributors to the community. Because I feel like we've just, for a long time, tended towards celebrating a certain type of person, and maybe it's time to think a little bit more creatively about that. And the starting of a fantastic new park might be an opportunity like that. So,
love it. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Doesn't look like we have any other questions on this. Madam Chair, we are at 8 o'clock and we have a couple more items. I can keep the community garden update really short. It'll be a longer update probably in the next month or so. You're muted, I couldn't hear you.
Can we get the Cliff Notes version?
Absolutely. Okay, so community garden update, just by way of background, another priority that the council set a couple of years ago was to work on getting a community garden built. And we've been working with an organization called CFOG, which was formed to help make this happen. CFOG stands for Community Friendship Organic Garden. I think they are changing their name, but keeping the acronym because they like the acronym. There's been some changes in their leadership this year due to their founder and chair moving away. She was also a recreation commissioner at one point. So the original plan was actually to have them develop kind of a medium-sized, what's called managed garden. So it's not where you build boxes and then people sign up for a plot and then they garden it themselves. It's more of a co-op type garden where people volunteer and they come and they help to develop this very well planned out and well managed garden, and then they can share in the proceeds, and then those proceeds can be shared with Abundant Grace and food banks and others in the community. And so this is a concept we'd like to pursue. It's how the Pacifica community garden is currently managed as well, and that was kind of a model for this. So the plan was to build this originally just to the east of the train depot, which is at the Johnston House site just south of town. Unfortunately, over the last year and a half, working with the county, because ironically, that's a city-owned property that's outside of city limits, and so not within our own jurisdiction, it was not found to be viable due to some environmental constraints and access to water and other improvements out there. And so ultimately, this group has now dropped that as their plan, and they're looking for a new site. So we're working with them on a couple of different city-owned properties. I'm not going to share them with you tonight because what we found with the last one is if we didn't really do some work on identifying the site, making sure it's feasible, and then doing outreach to the immediate community first, it really backfired. It was taken well. The folks that managed the Johnston House and some of the environmental activists in that area found out about it through the newspaper, and it got very ugly very fast. So we're going to be a little more careful this time, make sure we actually have a viable site, do some outreach to the neighbors, and then start talking about it more publicly. But I think over the next couple of months, we'll have it worked out. We've got a site that we've identified as a good option. We've got to work through some environmental questions and make sure we can get water to the site and some improvements, and then work with the neighbors. But a lot of progress has been made. Community development is actively involved because it's got to go through an entitlement process, even though it's city-owned. And we have an agreement with this group, and part of that agreement is we will provide $20,000 to them to help with startup costs and getting it built. And so that money will sit in reserve until we identify a new site, and then we amend the agreement to reflect the new location. But I think the new leadership there is really energized and excited and has some expertise that's going to be helpful. And I do think this is something you'll see move forward through the spring and summer and really gain some momentum here this year. So it was unfortunate. It had a lot of momentum before COVID and before some of these environmental issues came up. We're hoping that by choosing a site that's a little better established and outside of an environmentally sensitive area, we can get this move forward and get some community support behind it. So that's my Cliff Notes version. It's moving forward, but we've got to work through a couple things before we can really come back to you with a plan. But we will certainly do that once the neighboring properties have been notified and we feel like there's a viable opportunity here. We'll bring it to you for comment. I will say long term, I think the hope is to use a large portion of the 880 Stone Pine property for this as a more passive use. And part of the agreement that we made with Post in our acquisition of it was that once the city's uses for a corporation yard have been established, that a portion of it would be used to recognize its agricultural history. And a community garden is a great way to do that and still gain public access and allow people to use it. So that's probably, again, that's 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road probably, but an exciting prospect down the road.
Very good.
Oh, Madam Chair, you're muted.
Yeah, I was asking if there were any questions or comments on the community garden. And if not, I'm moving on to the policy for alliance groups. So if you would take a look at those pages, it's 3 pages of the draft. And how do you want to do this, Matthew? Do you want to go through it so that, because I'm guessing most of you did not have a chance to read this yet? Do I have I've read it word for word. I've completed the reading of this. Anyone?
And maybe I can give a little context and kind of what we're looking for. So we've been working with the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec over the last year to develop a memorandum of understanding to just kind of lay out our relationship and what we expect from them and what they can expect from us, and how working together collaboratively we can really do some great things in the community. We presented the overarching terms of that MOU to this commission last year, got some good feedback and made some modifications to the draft that we were negotiating, and then went to the city council, I think in January, to talk about adopting it. And at that time, the city council kind of put a pause on it, and they said, you know, the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec are not the only group out there that we are likely to work with in this capacity. We want to make sure we're fair and kind of have some guiding principles for any of these groups that we work with. So they asked our city attorney to develop a policy for working with these types of groups. And so what we sent to you today, and I apologize for sending something right before the meeting that's not typical, but we've been going back and forth with our attorney on getting this draft policy together. And so certainly I'm not looking for wordsmithing or you know, an editorial, you know, red line comments on this. What I'm looking for is that, because we do need to go to the city council with this before it can be approved, is just your general thoughts on what's included, what may be missing from a policy standpoint, to make sure we're thinking about when we work with groups like the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec. Or I could see a friends group form around Carter Park as it gets developed, a Friends of Poplar Bluff at some point. You know, these specialty groups that form to help fund and support the services and the recreational activities that the city provides, to make sure that we're not favoring one over the other, that we're not empowering one in one way and not giving the same abilities to another group. So that's kind of the context. Again, I apologize for sending it so late. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. And we're just looking for your comments now, and certainly you can send me comments down the road. This does have to go to the city council for their review and discussion as well.
Okay, I've looked it over myself.
Oh, good.
And I thought the general one for the public-private nonprofit partnerships policy, to me, it looked good. I didn't really have anything to suggest on that one. The MOU regarding Friends of Parks and Recreation, that's lengthier. I definitely would like for everyone to have a chance to really read through it and see if they have suggestions. My only thing there, most of this looks good. I think, though, you know, one of the things that has been a sticking point with us and Parks and Recreation is the money part. And how that money is going to, you know, how we are going, what percentage, what portion is it? Are we going to work with percentages? Is it going to be specific to each event? If we allow the Friends to use Carter Park, for instance, at the end of summer concert, and they are, you know, and they have a booth there, what are our expectations specifically? Not that something will happen, but specifically what is going to happen. 30%, 40% of what you get as proceeds is going to go to the city for its different projects or whatever it is. The point is we need specific language, and that isn't in here. Now, one of the specifics could be that in any partnership that we do with them, that it's specific, you know, this will be decided before the event, and it might be different depending on what the events are as to how suitable it is, you know, to get from them. In this case, we're looking at this amount. In another situation, it's a different amount. because it won't lend itself to either a larger or a small, whatever it is, so that we don't, put such a stronghold, but at the same time, we do get much more specific. So that's what I'm going for.
And there is language that talks about coordinating those fundraising events and activities before they're held. And my recollection from our last meeting with the commission where this kind of idea came from is that we wanted to leave it open on a event by event basis because it really depended on that negotiation at that time. So I think that's covered by this. And certainly
my concern is that the way it's covered, it sounds like it's going to be decided between the city liaison and the Friends of Parks and Rec.
How else would we do that?
That we could identify certain events, let's say, and the events that we haven't identified, maybe those are the ones that can be decided by the liaison and the Friends of Parks and Rec. But the events that we know are going to happen, or the way they go about collecting money, that we should have specific language as to what our expectations are. Otherwise, this is where things can always break down and not go well, is if we don't upfront talk about what we expect. And I know that in speaking to some of the city council members, I know that they feel the same way. So I do think that we need to you need to think about more specific language on the money part.
Yeah, I have to, just my own, I didn't read the information yet, and I'm so sorry. I didn't see the attachment beforehand, but I will read it and I will make comments. But that was something I was hoping to see in the MOU, was kind of just, the way I look at it is the Friends of the Parks are doing, they're doing God's work. They're trying to bring money in so we can do all these projects that we keep talking about. And we're in need of money. So that part makes sense, but stipulating exactly what we're going to get for the use of basically the name of parks, because if we're not going to get the money we need to create our own separate fundraising arm that goes directly into the parks. Back to it, when we're talking about funding Frenchman's Creek, it's like, that way this commission can kind of be, okay, here's what we want to focus on until we get 60 grand. That's where we're going with the money. And then we go to the next piece and the next piece. I feel like we need to be pretty upfront with what we're going to be doing with the money. And it has to be, to me, that's the whole, if we're not doing that in the MOU, the rest of the MOU is kind of meaningless, like the insurance and how the things are going to happen and all, it's not as important. We need the money and able to support the Parks and Rec department programs. I want to know exactly what % of that money we're going to get. I want it spelled out in the MOU, like directly.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Any of our other commissioners have any comments on this? Because pretty important, this relationship, and to make sure that it goes well.
And I'd really like to hear from Pat as well on this one, because she's got, the rest of us are all pretty new. She's got a little more history, her and Paulette.
Hi, I'm Pat. Well, I'll tell you, I'm very impressed with the way Matthew handles most situations. And I think also, too, this here will go to the city council as well. So I think it's going to be very well vetted so that the bases are covered And I think it's very true that, as you said, Adam, and as well as Paulette, to specifically state if it's a fundraiser and what is the percentage that the city will receive and where it is to go. And that's, I think, an important piece. So whether it's going to a park or it's going to one of our park activities or our Raleigh Wright Foundation, or it's not a foundation, it's the Raleigh Wright Fund. So I think that's important. We need to put things on paper. Everybody knows exactly what it is, no secrets. So thank you.
Yeah.
And for some context, the Raleigh Wright Fund, for those of you who don't know, it's a fund that the city has in its budget that is not paid for with tax dollars, but through donations, and it provides scholarships to allow people to access our recreation programming that may not be able to afford it otherwise. And that's mostly because our recreation programming, because we're such a small staff, our classes are through contract instructors. A person holds a class, we manage it, we manage the registrations, we take a cut of the proceeds, and then the instructor sets their rates and collects the remaining amount. And so there's no way for us to say, well, you're not going to charge this person because they're low income. We can't impose that on a contract instructor. So the Raleigh Wright Fund instead pays out of that fund a portion of that cost so that the instructors kept whole, but low-income families and individuals in the community can still access our programs. And it's really well used and well liked, and there's a lot of folks in our community who take advantage of it. And so that's one of the things that's been identified with the Friends as a really key place for them to fundraise, is to make sure we always have plenty of funding there to meet the needs of the lower income members of our community.
Okay, and just real quick, back to Pat. I agree with a lot of what you said. I just want to be, as a former person that served on council, I would expect this commission to hammer out the details and bring it to council ready to go. And I just, as a council member, I'm just approving this. Okay, here's what your recommendation is. We're going forward with it, but council will not hammer out these details. That's for us to do.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Okay, good.
Oh, no. I don't expect council to do anything. No, everything is ready to roll. You're presenting them with a final draft, the end product, and whatever caveats need to be in there. So it's real clear and concise, and we don't have to have discussion, because the discussion will all take place in advance. And as we have 5 people who are looking at it with 5 different pairs of eyes, that they can actually add to it and go with a and we're taking the commission vote to take this. Right. And present it to council, and under the advisement between our city attorney and Matthew. Matthew is a godsend to the city. So, okay, are you good with that?
I'm good with what you're saying. I'm not good with proceeding forward with this as the way it's written. I hear what you're saying. I actually think we should, based on just my quick, and I'll let everybody else, I think we should actually, I would rather continue this item until next meeting, make sure that we put this as like the first agenda item for our next meeting, talk it out as a group, make sure this is, to me, a super important topic. I don't want to make any judgment, and then from that make our recommendation to council, and that way we take our time to do it, because we really have to be very clear on what we're asking for here and what we're getting out of this, knowing that we can't do anything without the funds. Hillary's got these great, I love the volleyball idea. I love Luis's idea about the use of the boys and girls facility. The town garden needs funding. The pool needs funding, so all these different, anything we want to do in a time period where we're up against it from a funding perspective as a city. This is kind of like our opportunity to make any headroads. We need to make sure that we're very focused on how this is working. I think we should take a little more time with it. That'd be my perspective.
Yes, exactly. And what comes to me right now is I think we need to have a commission workshop to actually look at this and have a facilitator and, you know, get it as clear and concise. And if we have to meet 2 or 3 times in order to bring a document to council that is ready to roll. That's the way I look at it. Don't waste time. Do your talking, get it over with, points out, and go with it, but not do it fast.
All right. I personally don't think it takes that much time and work, because these MOUs, I have to believe, are happening in Redwood City, in Foster City, in Belmont, in Brisbane, wherever you go. Just a minute. Hold on. Let me finish, Pat. Let me finish. So I'm assuming a lot of this is actually a template from other cities. So that this part of it looks really good. I didn't have, I read through it and I thought, hey, this all looks good, except for one thing.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
And that's the one thing that does deserve and needs discussion. And I think it needs to include Maria or somebody from the Friends of Parks and Rec, that we come up with an agreement of a formula that is going to be used for disbursement of funds from them to the city. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's what's being developed now. If it's not complete, is the MOU with the Friends of the Parks and Rec. So right there, the details will be there.
Can I summarize what I've heard and kind of propose a path forward?
Thank you, Matt.
So to the chair's point, yes, this we didn't make up this template. This was pulled from other examples. There's not as many as you would think. A lot of times people are able to just work with their friends' organizations and they don't need a document to govern it. In our case, we've decided that that's the right thing to do. But there were enough samples that we were able to pull good information and good language from other places. And I think we thought we'd addressed kind of where you're going with some language that gave us flexibility. Clearly, we've got a majority of the commission that is directing that they would like to see more detail, actual specifics spelled out. So what we will do is, if you all, now you have a copy of the draft agreement, if you can look at it, look at the other sections, make sure there's nothing in there that draws concern. I'll work with Eddie and Maria and probably Sherazad, who's the president of the Friends, and we'll try to work out some details. So if I understand specifically what you're looking for is we have certain events that we know we're going to have. We have the summers, the music events at Mac Dutra Plaza during the summer, and often the Friends table there. They do fundraising. They do their membership drives, that kind of stuff there. The Summer's End Music Festival, the 2 that we've held, the Friends sold alcohol at that event. It's a huge moneymaker, and so for those types of things, you would like in the MOU already nailed down before we sign what percentage of those proceeds are going to go where.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then Eddie and I can talk about other events. Maria can think about other places they might want to participate. And then also some standalone things where they may just want to set up in one of our parks and hold an event or a fundraiser, and what percentage we would take from those. And then language that basically says, and for any other events, and we'll develop some sort of language that either creates that process that works for you, or that even spells out, some sort of sliding scale or something. I don't think there's precedent out there for this language. I've looked at a lot of these from across the country. I've never seen anything like this. But
one of the reasons, obviously, that we're in this position is, we know that this group, got themselves focused on the pool and their administrative costs. And between that, they raised money to just fund those things. And they threw a little money our way in some of the events that they did have. That's not going to be good going forward. All right. So we need to make sure that that is not the situation. And I think that we all need to feel comfortable that it's not going to be the situation, so that we all feel good about moving forward with this group. You know, we've been trying and trying to bring it together, you know, to create bridges here and bring our two entities together. And I think it can be done, but I think that specificity is important when it comes to dealing with this group.
Right, and I think that message has been heard loud and clear from all of you tonight. So we'll work on that with the Friends and try to come to some language that both of us can agree upon. We'll bring that back to you at your March meeting. In the meantime, if you could take a look at the rest of the agreement, provide any other comments. If you can provide those to Jonathan, he'll make sure that we see those and we can get them into the agreement, because we would really like to get this finalized and moving forward.
All right, we want to move.
It'd be great if we can bring something in March that meets all of your comments and needs, and then take it to the council immediately afterwards for approval. So we appreciate the time you're going to spend and have spent looking at this. We'll work on that additional language. Hopefully that's the only major thing that you all have found and will find, and we can move this forward. So.
The other thing that I'm curious about in there that I didn't see, granted, I didn't read it that closely yet, but just in terms, is there the ability for this commission to specify where the funds that we would be getting specifically go to, so we can prioritize kind of the projects, you know, almost to our priority setting that we're about to do, but kind of like, yeah, we want to fund Frenchman's Creek first. So it's kind of like, all right, we have a goal. Overall, we need 20,000. We're going to ask for city council for 20,000, whatever, to get to our $50,000 goal, however it's going to work. But that way we can kind of like, you know, move that money how we want to see fit, because otherwise I just look at us as being handcuffed, where it's like, we've got these priorities. We don't have any way to fund them. Except for reliance on what comes in, but then we don't even have a say in how that money's used. That doesn't seem like a good follow.
Let me share, though, the relationship of this commission to the city council, and then the city council's role in the staff's role. So this commission is an advisory commission. The council has not vested in this commission any authority to make decisions. This commission has been set up to, as we've talked about just in this prior discussion, to work out ideas and recommendations with staff, so that as we bring things forward to the council has the best information to make decisions on. Ultimately, decisions about how money is spent come from the staff as the administrative side, and the council has to make those final decisions. So I don't believe that there's any mechanism that this commission would actually make decisions about how money is spent. Recommendations could be made, but there's also a separation between the council's role with the budget and the day-to-day work that staff does. And I start to see that bleeding a little bit, and it's dangerous to let that bleed, because when the council or a commission gets out of policy and gets into administration, that there's a reason why the government's been set up the way that it is, that commissions and the council are focused on policy and the big picture, and staff are focused on the minutia and the implementation of it. So to be honest, I don't see a way for the commission to make decisions about how revenue is spent. Staff makes recommendations to the council approves it in the budget each year. And then as we bring projects forward, the council ultimately makes those decisions, not even staff or the commissions.
Yeah, I agree, Matthew, but there is something, and I'm going to let Maria talk in a second here, because I'm just about to address the way I understand your organization deals with donations is they are specific. Do you want to donate to Carter Park? Do you want to donate to Frenchman's Creek Playground? Do you want to donate to, whatever it is that they set up, so that people know what they're donating to, which is important. It shows, what their interests are as well. Maria, do you want to continue talking about that a little bit? Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that, we are a nonprofit, so we need to honor what our donors are giving to as well. And we do a lot of times ask for specific things.
Right.
like Carter Park, like Frenchman's Creek. So I can't say, oh, we just raised $50,000. We're giving you $50,000 for Frenchman's Creek.
Right.
And then let that money go and pay for something else completely. Like, it's just not how a nonprofit needs to be operating. We have to be very careful as well. I mean, we are a separate organization that gives the money based on what we are raising for. So that's just what I just wanted to mention, is that we have to honor that. We have to, pay attention to our donors' requests and needs, and support what we can based on that.
Right. Okay, so I think that sounds good. So we'll just be looking for, comments from all our commissioners and more specific language on the financial aspect of it.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, you get where I'm coming from, though, Matthew. I mean, I hear what you say loud and clear, and I'm okay with that. But you must at least understand where I'm coming from in my statements and how we can best partner together to achieve things that we want to. So we're not moving in like 10 different directions and nothing gets done. And I think. Yeah, and I think those the structure is in place to do that. For instance, Public Works is going to come to the commission in the coming months to present some of the options for our capital improvement plan, and they're going to look for your feedback and your input on what parks projects should be prioritized as part of our capital improvement plan for the next fiscal year. And your thoughts and your recommendations and your ideas go into that final recommendation that goes to the council. The council then approves that plan. So you've now had influence over what our project priorities are and what we're going to move forward. And then, of course, the fundraising that the Friends do is based upon, at least when they do it in collaboration with us and on our facilities and using our name and our logo, has to be on those priority projects. So a good example of this is the pool, which is something they've been working on for a long time. Because that's never been identified as a city priority, when they fundraise for it, when they talk about it, they can't say that the city is supportive of this or on board with this. Yes, it's something that's in the Parks Master Plan, is something that we want to see in the future. And I think all of us agree that there will come a time when the plans and the funding and the will of the community all converge. And this will be a priority because it would be an awesome thing for our community. Yeah. But right now, it's not part of the city's priorities. It's not part of our capital improvement plan. And so the Friends don't imply that we're backing this or that we're supporting it right now. And they don't fundraise at our events for the pool and other things. That's what the MOU sets out. So that's where I think you have control and influence over how this money gets used, is by making those recommendations to staff and to the council during the process, so that when the council approves it, it's already got your input included. And then that's what the Friends are working with us collaboratively on fundraising for. Does that make sense? Yeah, very much.
Well, and I just want to add just really quickly, sorry. But I just wanted to say too, so since I've been involved, Shahrzad actually brings it to the board meetings now, Matthew or Eddie or both. And Pat was coming to all of our meetings last year to actually make sure we're all aligning better and to make sure we're talking about priorities. So basically, Shahrzad meets with the board and talks about, I'm there too, but talks about what we're going to do. And we know there's no way we can make our top priorities 5 or 6 projects and be successful. So, right now it's Frenchman's Creek. We still have the pool on the radar, but we also know it's not the top priority right now. So that's not something, we have on our website, Carter Park. We have the Raleigh Wright Scholarship Fund now, so we do talk about those things. So we're just aligning more with the priorities of this commission. And we're trying to make sure we stay in that path. We know Carter Park is coming. We know that's going to probably be one of the next things. So anyway, I just want to make sure that everyone kind of understands, because I know there's a history. We all know it. And we want to make sure that we're all on the same page now going forward, because, if not, we're not going to be successful, any of us. Friends isn't going to be successful, and our job is to raise money for what we're doing. So, we know that as a nonprofit. So anyway, I know it's late, so I'll stop talking.
No, all good.
Very
So
good.
the only other thing I wanted to add is the sooner you can get your comments on the current draft to Jonathan, I think the better revised version we're going to bring back to you in March. And we'll get it to you, not the day of the meeting, we'll get it to you with the agenda packet. We can't give it to you before we distribute the agenda packet because you're a public body, we can't provide something to you that we're not also providing to the entire community. And so the earliest you'll see it is when we publish the packet. When do we publish, Jonathan? The Friday before?
Thursday before.
The Thursday before. So, but it'll be substantially what you're seeing tonight, plus whatever comments that you've submitted and how we're able to work those into it. So I appreciate that.
Very good. Very, very good. Okay. Our last thing on our agenda to work on here is the commission goals for 2021. So I think in our discussions tonight, a lot of things have come up. And so I think that gives us kind of a little bit of a head start. I don't know if you all had a chance to look through the Half Moon Bay Parks and Recreation Commission 2020 recap. Obviously it was not a year that we normally would have, but even in that, there might be some ideas for a future for the goals that we're setting for this year. So I'm going to go around to each person. Maybe you can give me a goal that you think so that at least we all can have input, go of maybe a few rounds, get the input on your goals, and then for us to narrow down and get into, all right, what top 5? I think we should maybe look at 5 goals, at least to start out with. What's our top 5 goals for 2021? Or it might be more, might be 8 or something. Just depends what we end up with. So I will start the ball rolling, and
it looks like Matthew wanted to say something. He might have
I just have a quick piece of context. I think there's 2 different types of goals. There's goals that we can focus our commission meetings around and that you as commissioners can work on. And I think you're free to kind of choose anything for those. And then there might be things that you want the city to prioritize or staff to prioritize. And those will have to go through a process of going to the city council and talking about staffing and priorities and funding and those things. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that some things you can decide on tonight, others are recommendations for staff to take to the council and talk through and see if can be incorporated in the planning for the next fiscal year.
Okay, so I'm looking at initially, I want to hear about goals that we want to see ideally accomplished in the year 2021, that we want to, make sure that we can say we did this in 2021. So my first one is obviously Frenchman's Creek Playground. I'd like to make sure that that gets installed, and that is something we can say that we all work together on and made sure that it happened in 2021. Okay, Luis, you have something?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Frenchman's Creek Park should get done this year. That's for sure. Anything
else you would like to see?
Obviously, I'd like to get the ball rolling on getting the, oh my gosh, why am I blanking? Boys and Girls Club would be nice too, but also get the ball rolling on the amphitheater down there by Stone
Carter Park.
Thank you, Carter Park. Thank you. I was
whatever next step we want to see, another step being taken for sure with Carter Park. If not, have the whole thing done. No, okay, that's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
All right, number 3. All right, Adam, you have something?
I got a bunch of things here, and
okay, but just give me one because we'll go around and around. So just give me one from each right now.
Well, I liked, and I don't know where we stood on this as we left off on council with this, or I did, and I'm not sure what's been done. We were talking about drafting an MOU with kind of like schools to figure out how to use their facilities more. And kind of back to what Luis was saying earlier about the use of the Boys and Girls Club, but also there's quite a few gyms in this community. And I also, similarly to Luis, and I, also coach soccer and all the various things. So I have all these kids that like want to be involved in various activities. There are facilities, and even just like an hour of dodgeball, an hour in open gym, an hour, whatever it may be, but how to access more of that to get the community more available to, as Luis put very well, like, out of troublesome situations, let's call them, and into athletic and better situations where they can, exhaust themselves and not use that energy negatively in our town.
All right, good one.
Absolutely. And just to add on, sorry, really quick, Adam, I agree with you. And the main reason why I want to use more of our facilities here in town is a bunch of these young kids, they need a mentor. They need a father figure, and honestly, that's the main reason why I coach. I grew up without a father, so I want to be a mentor to those kids that don't have a father, don't have that role model. So
good for you. Yay. Absolutely.
Yes. So that's the reason why I'm pushing sports and using the facilities a lot. So let's get the ball rolling on that as well. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, Pat, you have something?
Well, the first thing I thought about is get Frenchman's Creek done. We, the amount of money used to finish it, and we have the equipment, and we have the talent in Public Works. Get it over with. Finish it in 2021. The second thing is, for me, is Carter Park is to start, because it can be done in phases, that a phase starts. And, they've got the black fencing up to let you know where the riparian area is, so you're not in it. The other thing, too, is I want to see a citywide art policy.
Yes.
We really, really need this. And the last thing, which is driving me crazy, because I could not print out the attachment that Jonathan sent today, because my internet goes crazy, and it's amazing, but we have poor internet, and we're looking at it here for our kids who are trying to do their homework and other stuff. So if I'm having problems where I live, and it's a known fact, something has to change. And I think that's a real important piece, because that's your connection to the world. And anyway, it was annoying today because it just wouldn't fly.
Okay, so that's really good. Thank you, Pat. The art policy, I had that in my list. But with that, I'd also like to see that we get the policy established in 2021, but I'd also like to see an art committee. I'd like to see an art committee so that they can start planning what it is that is going to, some of the ideas for public art in Half Moon Bay. So that's, so I put that together, Pat, art policy and art committee. Now, number 5, Hillary, what have you got?
Wait, real quick. On that topic, I'm just going to jump in on that one, because Palo Alto just did a whole mural project and it's all done by local artists.
Right. Yeah.
And we have those artists here in Half Moon Bay.
It's not about, okay.
Yeah, and we just have tons of area where we could use a little color and a little energy. So I don't know if that's what we need to do, if we commission, whatever, but we definitely need to get that moving. And again, a no cost item, well, I guess everything costs, but a low cost item, just in terms of at least getting it started. But I think the one, they actually commissioned people in Palo Alto. I mean, they only paid people, $1,000 per installation, but it was local artists. They got a little money. I mean, I'm sure their cost was not necessarily reimbursed, but they got to be part of the community. And it was big and added a lot of culture. They actually have a little walk you can do now. And one of the people that we hosted the other night, actually was one of those commissioners and was telling me all about it and gave, it's on their website. I researched it. So just a lot of good stuff from that. I agree. We need to move forward with that. We have an artistic community, and yet we don't have the art in Half Moon Bay. So I'm just second.
Yeah, I like that too. And it seems like something that would maybe be more straightforward to tackle and really get going.
Yeah. All right, next.
Is it me now?
Yeah.
Okay, Paulette, you're muted.
Yeah.
I was asking Hillary if she had anything else, but
Okay.
Otherwise, round two. We'll do a round two go around. So
Okay.
Mine is for round two.
I have one.
Oh, you have one. Good. What is it?
So the first one is like a small piece of what I feel like is a bigger picture thing, and it's just establishing some kind of committee to look at the coastal trail across Half Moon Bay, not just with the Poplar Project, but a holistic look at it so that we're addressing needs quickly and but also proactively.
Good.
Are you talking more like erosion-ish or like divots in the pathway, or just kind of like expanding the pathway, just out of curiosity, or just all of the above? Or
really at this point, it's all of the above.
It's everything. It's everything. Yeah. There's so much.
That's why I feel like we need a group, because there's...
Well, at that minimum, we need it to be a priority. And so that we can get the different players that are involved with the coastal path together, and we can have a whole session about the coastal path. Okay, so my other one is, I'm going to pick up on your thing, Hillary, is I'm putting in beach volleyball.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Luis. What do you have? Anything else?
Not really, but I mean, one thing I just want to ask, is there some way that we could all, or can we figure something out to get the low-income housing or Hispanic community more involved with our community? Could we do something about that? Like programs or, I don't know.
Everything that we're mentioning, though, of course, involves the entire community of Half Moon Bay.
No, absolutely. But I just, more, I don't know. Let me sleep on it. Let me find the right words, and I'll come back to it.
Sure, absolutely.
No. And realistically, I mean, we're counting on you for some of that stuff, because
absolutely.
And I'm just going to jump in on top of that and see if this helps at all. But, one of the things, and I think you guys did a really good job, and I really believe this is one of Eddie's top things, or at least, but the whole concerts, the bands, the music, you had, I believe your first concert last year was a mariachi,
Yeah.
which I think was, great for hopefully like that part of the community. I also think you had a
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead, you're right, yeah.
And then I think you also did, like, not specifically for that community, but for more kids. I think you had like some sort of like, I want to call him a clown or some sort of.
Oh, yeah.
Andy Z.
Andy Z, right.
Andy Z,
right.
that's what it was. Okay, something like that. So
I thought he was a clown.
Diversified.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's an entertainer.
But an entertainer, thank you. Entertainer's a better word. Entertainer's much better. But, that was really good. I thought you guys did a great job on that last year. And then the year-end celebration, I hope that's the right term or whatever it's called. The summer end, I mean, that's been fantastic. I think Eddie, and I'm just giving you credit, Eddie, because I assume that's mostly you, but like, that's been an unbelievable event 2 years in a row. It's each time I've been there, I've been like, this is what it's all about. Like, this is how it should be. It's been all levels of all the different pieces, the food, the entertainment, the like little bouncy house. I mean, really nailing all that stuff. So for me, the music is something I want to really invest in again. I don't know what type of investment that requires. Again, back to the fundraising, if that's already allocated in the budget. I would love to get more money for it. I think we only did 4 events in Summer's End last year, which might be the right amount if that's what you guys think. But I really enjoyed those.
Okay, I'm sorry to cut you off, but the time is short. And I do not believe that this year, unfortunately, that's going to be a reality. I don't think we're going to be gathering in groups until probably at the earliest, the very end of this year. So I don't think it'll be in the time of concerts or anything like that. I just do not see it happening, not with the spotty vaccination program and everything else. I just don't see it.
Or is it something we can move to like October when it's beautiful and generally nice?
Well, October is the pumpkin festival, and I don't know that they'll have a pumpkin because I can't imagine the way we're so crowded like sardines at the pumpkin festival. I do not see that as a reality either.
No, okay? Most likely not. Most likely.
So let's focus on still pretty much a COVID year, but what can we accomplish in pretty much another COVID year? Okay. So I think all the things that we have right here so far are things that we could absolutely accomplish.
Well, we don't have the town garden on there.
Well, that's another one that I think should be on there. So yes, community garden, I'm putting down.
We don't have, I'm just going to go through mine just because whatever.
Okay.
We don't have a pump track on there or a way for kids to kind of be able to access biking opportunities, being outside. Again, kind of just trying to figure out ways for kids to be outside and active and not causing trouble. But like a pump track, are you familiar with the concept? They're small little areas.
They have one.
Where is it?
Isn't there one just north of here?
Yes.
El Granada or someplace?
Yes. El Granada.
Yeah.
There's one in El Granada. It's not in Half Moon Bay.
Okay.
Yeah. But there is one, and it's used a ridiculous amount.
Yes.
If we had such a thing in Half Moon Bay, it would be used a lot.
I think that's a low priority right now, to tell you the truth. But I'm a mom who drove my kid from Redwood City to Half Moon Bay so he could skate park.
Yeah.
And so, we are out there still. But I don't think that's a priority.
Yeah, well, Pat, I'm just putting things down.
It's a good idea.
I'm putting things down right now, and then we can narrow down what it is that we have. All right. So do you have anything else, Pat?
Yeah, I do. I like the outdoor dining, the street closure. Remember we did that? That I thought was really good. And it's not going to, and then the other thing, I kind of look at the security cameras because I do think that makes a point. I've had experience with it, and it made a difference. So, I'd rather see them do that than to really close the park because it could come down to that at some point. So keep everybody safe.
Yeah. Okay, Hillary, you have anything else?
One hopefully attainable thing would just be to ask if there's, building on what Luis was saying, I wonder if there's just a way to get additional community feedback from like the full community to hear some, if we're missing any priorities or like just to hear what our community feels about priorities. It would probably be for the following year, but
yeah, do a survey. Yeah.
Or a listening session even.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're having one, right? It's coming up.
No, but I mean, no. I mean like a parks listening session.
Yeah.
Where we're specifically asking the community.
Or even a survey.
Or at least, Matthew, if nothing else, if we don't end up with that route, is in the listening session, is if you could put a column that is headed with the words Parks and Recreation,
That's good.
That at least it'll give people an opportunity to throw in some ideas under that column.
Yeah, I mean, just because I would love to hear if we are, for example, in the Hispanic community, if we're missing some key priorities, it would be really helpful to know. And if we're just missing any priorities in general,
yeah,
I'd love to know that.
Yeah.
But I did have a question about the outdoor dining, which I'm super supportive of. I just, I'm wondering if that needs to fall under Parks and Rec, or if it can be prioritized by another part of the city so that our agenda doesn't have to be quite so heavy. And
I agree.
Still have
and
yeah,
Madam Chair, if you are okay, when you finish kind of making your list, I would love to go through and kind of go item by item and talk about where we're at, what I think it would take, so that you get an idea of like what's feasible, what's not, what's already being worked on.
All right.
Yes, and maybe that, like, tell us this could be done by blah, and then we can focus on the things that make most sense for us.
Right. All right. One other one that I have that the prior mayor brought up when he was in office is first night.
Yeah, I do want first night.
And first night is a wonderful thing. I don't know if any of you have ever participated in it, but I have. I've been in places where they have a first night, and it's always fabulous. And I have a feeling that this year, that's the only time we'll probably all be getting together, is maybe first night. And even if it's quasi-COVID still, even then it lends itself, because it's people are already going to restaurants, outdoor dining, this and that. There's ways to do it even in this modality. There's a way for it to be done.
Real quick, just in case, just so people know.
What it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's done a little differently in every place, but most of the time, my exposure has been that you will get a wristband that you pay for, and it's anywhere. Places charge, cities charge anywhere from $10 to maybe $25. And you get a wristband, and that lets you into all the places that are participating specifically for first night. So you could be going to a restaurant that's going to be offering like some special cocktails, some New Year's cocktails. You could be going to a place that's offering hot chocolate for the kids, whatever. You could be going to a little concert. You could be, involved in that. Maybe some place where they're playing trivia, pub trivia, or something like that. It's different events and different things, and so organizations, restaurants, clubs, whatever, participate, and it's a tremendous community event. It's like a wonderful thing. Everybody is in high spirits, and people are walking around and going to different venues and share. And it's just really, it's a terrific way to bring in the new year.
It's the night of New Year's Eve. There's all these events in the community. We'd use a bunch of different venues in downtown, such as like Oddfellows. The churches sometimes use places. All the venues in downtown. People would do concerts, people juggle, people do performances. You go to all these different things. And then, of course, we'd make sure we have little performances for different parts of the community as well. So everybody's involved with all that aspect. And then, let's just say 10 o'clock at night, or you could go as late as midnight. You drop the ball in town, and everybody kind of celebrates New Year's together, as opposed to, so it's a nice community. Monterey does a great job of this.
Yeah. And it's sort of something it's almost like something you want to see happen after Night of Lights has ended. It's like you feel like, wait a minute, there should be more going on. And meantime, 8 o'clock, you're going home, you're going to bed, So this is this is that scene you want after Night of Lights, but it's New Year's Eve.
I'd love it.
All right, so that's any other, before I finish this list and have Matthew comment on it, is there anything else that that anyone has? I'm just looking through my thing, if I have anything else that I wrote down. Carter Bark, but oh, okay. I don't know that there's much of, again, because of the timing, because of COVID, I don't think there's much of anything else that we're really going to do on Earth Day, but you know that that's been something I've wanted to see expanded and become more of a big thing here in Half Moon Bay, but this is not the year to do it. You know, but next year, hopefully that would be the story. And volleyball arts. So that's it. I've done gone through my list. All right. So it looks like Hillary. Yeah.
I don't know if this covers the jurisdiction of Half Moon Bay. I need to learn some of these things, but there are the soccer fields in Moonridge that are not really maintained, and I just wondered about. It's another place where kids can.
It's the county, though. The county's in charge of Moonridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could advocate on behalf of Moonridge to get that done with the county and put that as something to do, but we can't. That's not. It's not something we could actually do anything about.
And actually, it's in county jurisdiction, but the fields are owned and operated by Mid-Penn Housing.
No.
The folks that own and operate Moonridge. But I think it's something that could be explored as a potential location. It does create a little weird dynamic when it's outside of city limits, but it's not unheard of. So it's certainly something we could at least explore.
Okay, and Matthew, there's only one thing I have in addition, but I'm not sure that it hasn't been dealt with. I'm really confused. I'm always confused about the Johnston House.
And your specific, sorry, I'm making a note here.
Like where we are, because we've had this on the agenda so many times, is to have them in to figure this out, the Historical Society, who should be running it, the county, the Historical Society, so I don't know, we've gone around so many times that I just do not know where we are.
Yeah.
But it's obviously
that's a whole item of its own, and I think it's something that's in our list of future items that, with or without the Johnston House Historical Association, or I can't remember the exact title of the group, we will agendize and have a discussion of, because that is something we want to pick up. Whether or not it's a priority to you all, it's something that's a priority to city staff. So
right, that's the thing.
Something we're planning to pick up either way.
Yeah. Well, that's what we need to hear from also. Yeah. We need to hear from you and Eddie. You know, what are your priorities for Parks and Rec, so that also can be incorporated into this list and we come up with our final top priorities.
Well, and I really feel like that's even in some ways more important than what we just said, because, you know, or it's almost like we all need to kind of wrap our heads around these ideas, hear about it, and then really figure out, well, there are certain things you guys need to prioritize on your own, and that kind of leaves so much room for one or two, maybe one project. I mean, whatever it may be, but that way we're just realistic about what we're doing. Because I really do want to focus us so we can minimal amount of things on the plate, so we can make progress definitely on them. Or if you think it's better to have multiple things, because we can, we'll accomplish that, you know, but I just want to be very realistic. I think it's important to be very realistic about what we can and cannot do, or recommend, or whatever you want to say it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, because that is obviously a dynamic of our capacity, our workload, the city's budget, the city's priorities. Sorry, I'm killing a mosquito. And I did want to share with our new commissioners, the lateness of the hour tonight is not normal. It will not become a consistent thing. I think tonight there was just some big items, some context. And then, of course, this is a really good discussion that needs to be had to kind of set the tone for the year. So we normally end at 8 or a little bit after. Tonight's a special night, but I think we're all committed here. So just appreciate everybody hanging in on this one. So I'm going to go through, I'm not going to go in any particular order, because I have some, you know, dots connecting and lines. And but I'll kind of try to address everything I heard and let you know, and Eddie can jump in as well, any of the stuff that's already in the works that we're working on, things we've been thinking about already. So at least you get an idea of where your priorities that you've shared and your thoughts kind of fall on that spectrum of already in the works, something we can work on, or that's probably for a future year kind of a concept. So let's start with Commissioner Haro's comment about just working with the Latinx community and folks that are living in low-income housing and engaging them more. So I can say from a citywide standpoint, we actually dedicate a lot of time and energy to that. I have a staff member, Victor Gaitan, who is in our community services division. And a lot of his work is making sure that everything we do engages the Latinx community. Most of that is done in partnership with ALAS and the Latino Advisory Council for the Coast Side. We have some great partners there. Obviously now we have Councilmember Jimenez, who's an active member he works for ALAS and he's a part of the Latino Advisory Council. But I will say that when it comes to recreation, that has always been a gap that we wanted to fill, is how do we make sure there's programming and activities that meet the needs of the entire community. And so I think that's something that certainly we can spend some time looking at and thinking about. We get a lot of feedback on a lot of our projects and the things that the city does as a whole through some very specialized and direct outreach to the Latinx community. We do our city council meetings in Spanish. We try to do any of our big public meetings in Spanish, including our listening sessions. But again, I think when we talk about recreation and our programming, our events, I think we get a lot of feedback in partnership with those communities to make sure we have events that meet the needs of the community. But I do think that that's something we could definitely explore and certainly maybe make some efforts to do a park-specific listening session or invite, what I will say is, and you grew up in that community, so you understand that there's some different dynamics. A lot of the folks that we work with in the Latinx community, they're not going to come to a big community meeting. That doesn't have any meaning to them. You've got to bring it to them in a different way, share it with them in a different way that meets their cultural context and how they operate, instead of forcing people to operate the way that we do as a city. And so I think, hopefully you can be a good influence in helping us maybe think through how to expand our programming and be more inclusive. Eddie works really, really closely with the Boys and Girls Club, which obviously has a good reach into the youth in the Latinx community as well. But certainly something we always think about, and I'll be the first to say, I think we do a great job at it, but man, there's so much more we could be doing and so much better we can be doing as a community. So I think that's more just an overarching thing, that everything we do, we need to always have that lens on the work that we do. And maybe there's some specific things as we move forward with some of these plans that can be focused to make sure we're inclusive of the entire community. And then I like the idea of when we do our listening sessions, just making sure people know that we're interested in hearing what people think about parks and recreation. It always ends up being a category where we get feedback every year because it's something that people in the community care about. But we can be really sure that it's spelled out clearly to folks this year that we want their feedback specifically around parks and recreation. The outdoor dining. So I think there's two pieces here. One is there's already efforts being made with the businesses to create parklets, and what we call parklets are more the permanent kind of outdoor recreation space in front of businesses. And then we have what's called streeteries, which is basically street eateries, and they're more temporary. So that is one, for instance, that is not really under the purview of recreation. There's a connection there, but I have a team, I have an individual that her and I are the team that work on economic development. And of course, we're leading this new community revitalization and recovery effort. And that is certainly the downtown and how to activate Main Street and make it more walkable and usable are all part of that effort. And so I think that effort and that task force, there will be some intersections with recreation as we do it. And then the other piece that I think Pat Black was mentioning was in August, we actually closed a big section of Kelly Avenue adjacent to Mac Dutra to just set up tables. Eddie did a great job. You know, we rented tables and chairs and got a donation of plants and centerpieces and just created this really cool outdoor space for a weekend. And it was successful. Unfortunately, it fell on the weekend that people were being evacuated during the fires. And so there was people that didn't want us to do it. And we definitely want to do it again multiple times this summer in a different context, right? But again, that's where like, you know, my role is over so many different things at the city, but that's where like my rec team with Eddie and then my outreach team with Victor and then Karen, who works on a community or economic development, all kind of comes together and pulls that kind of stuff off. And so certainly that's something you'll see more of. And we're happy to bring updates and information to this commission as it comes along. But I don't think it's something the commission needs to really put a lot of energy into. There's already energy within the city focused on that kind of work and working with the Downtown Business Association and the Chamber of Commerce and the business groups on. Anything else on that one, Eddie, you wanted to share? You led that effort over the summer.
I would just echo that it was well received for the little amount of traffic that we saw that weekend. We just in that one-off kind of a pilot event, we did have quite a few donations for that event. We implemented our council-approved sponsorship program where folks could sponsor these events in exchange for advertising and some other benefits. We raised about $1,200, I think, from that event. And so there was obviously, you know, some people on Main Street that were excited about that and want to be part of it and pitch in and contribute. So I think it would continue to be successful.
Great. Just moving down this side of my page to the pump track, which, you know, we're aware of, and we have a city manager that is an avid cyclist and loves that kind of stuff. I would say this is on the list of something that we need to work towards, but that's ultimately it's a big project because it does take property, it takes development, it takes planning, it takes funds to build. What happened in El Granada, for those of you who don't know, Quarry Park is a county-run park, and people just built a pump track there, and then the county had to shut it down and then go through a whole process to legalize it. And you know, the county parks department, it's one department, their budget's 10, 20 times our entire city budget.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the kind of resources it takes to make something happen. But I do think, to your point, Adam, it's something that the community wants, and it's something that can be worked towards, but I do think it's going to take some community energy behind that as well. It certainly isn't on the list of city priorities within the Parks Master Plan or any of the other efforts that we've been working on. So I think it's going to need some grassroots kind of effort to start bringing it to the forefront before you would see the city invest energy and funding into it, especially finding a location for it, because again, our city property probably doesn't provide for that. It's probably going to be somewhere else. So the community garden, I think I've mentioned, I think that's one that we'll definitely keep coming back to this commission on, but I think the energy's there and the priority is there and there's funding for it. And so that's one that I don't think you need to focus on as a priority other than just your endorsement that you still want to see that move forward and get done. We've already got time and energy going into it, and it's really ramped up over the last month and a half. So certainly one that I think you should have on your radar, but I don't think you need to make it a priority. Johnston House, that's one. For those of you who don't know, the Johnston House is owned by the city. It's outside of the city limits, so the county has jurisdiction, so it makes for some weird stuff. And you know, the history of it is, you know, that property was rebuilt by the Johnston House Foundation, and unfortunately, the history of them from a grassroots effort, building it, investing in it, getting the furnishings and operating it for the last 25, 30 years has created some interesting entitlement issues with that group. And we certainly as a city want to see that property more available and more open to the community, much like the Half Bay History Association, through our agreement with them, are operating the jail, you know, pre-COVID, and it'll get back to it soon. They're operating the jail behind City Hall as a micro museum, and they've raised $3 million to build a full-on coastside history museum on that property. The Johnston House should be operated in the same way with required weekly openings and access to the schools and other things. We have had a lot of trouble bringing that group to the table, and at some point to get an agreement in place and to have them understand our needs and see if they'll commit to them or if we need to go another direction. There was some energy behind that before COVID. Since everything shut down, some of that energy has been lost, but I do think that's something we'll see pick up this year because that is a city-owned property that needs to be activated and available to the public more regularly than it is right now. So you should expect to see that on an agenda in the future. We would love to have the Johnston House Foundation come and talk about themselves and try to do it in a positive way and work together as opposed to the city saying, look, we're going to have to go a different direction. So that's one that I think should be on your radars. And I think it's something you could prioritize and it's feasible from a staff and workload perspective and something we're thinking about already. The Committee for the Coastal Trail is an interesting one because, as you mentioned, the city only owns the stretch of the coastal trail that there's two stretches that we have control over, and that's from Kelly Avenue to the Seymour Ditch or Seymour Waterway Bridge south of the Poplar parking lot. That's our main section. And then we have a little section that we control kind of down near the Ritz or down by the golf course. And then, of course, state has jurisdiction, Post has jurisdiction or ownership. Coastside Land Trust has ownership. The Ritz-Carlton has some ownership. Ocean Colony Partners has some ownership. So it's one where I don't know if anybody's ever taken on what you've kind of described, Hillary, as like this coalition to look at the whole trail as one piece to hey, let's plan this as one. I will let you know that the focus for Poplar is on the gateways and our section of the trail there. I doubt there's bandwidth at the city right now to take on this multi-jurisdictional big project, but it's certainly something I'll float to Public Works, who really can, manages it's a little different in our city too, because Parks and Recreation, we manage the programming. Public Works does all the maintenance, all the construction, and of course, we advise them on projects we want to see happen. But there's a lot of things when it comes to the actual physical facilities that we have to work through Public Works on and their prioritization and their workload, because we just don't have the ability in our department to manage it. Karen Decker, one of my analysts in the city manager's office, she led the Carter Park project and she did a fantastic job. But it was really, really difficult for us as city management staff trying to lead a project that would normally be led by a project manager in capital projects, who that's what they do, and community development. It was just necessary because of staffing and workload. And so this kind of a project that you're describing probably is a cooperative effort between the city manager's office and Public Works. And I can just honestly say, from a workload standpoint, we are not staffed to do that right now. One of the things we could explore is hiring a consultant or a firm to help convene a coastside group to do something like that. So I think it's something that we can start talking about, and it could happen over the next couple of years, but I would not expect that, just what I know citywide, to happen very quickly. It's a huge undertaking. But I think it's a great idea too, because I don't think it's ever been looked at holistically. It's all been piecemeal.
I wonder too if there's just if there's a way to talk about it in terms of not just the coastal trail, but pedestrian and bike tributaries to the coastal trail, so that actually falls more in the Half Moon Bay City as well. Or that might just make it more complicated. But I was already thinking about like the park and the the little nature path in Carter Park, and how it would be lovely and super useful to be able to connect that to Main Street and the beach.
And there are plans for that, but Paulette sits on the Bike Ped Advisory Committee that just does exactly that. Probably not something we want to get into tonight, but certainly those kind of efforts are under the way, and Paulette could probably fill you in better than I could on the plans that have already been developed. There's a Bike Ped master plan that was. Is it just recently adopted, Paulette, or is it still being finalized?
the bike path master plan, was finalized a while back in terms of that we have a plan. Now we're going through, just like the parks master plan, now we're going into the piecemeals of each piece to see what can be done now and as we keep moving along. So that's all set. But even having said that, again, I'm with Hillary on this. I really think that, yes, this whole coastal path, do we have a Department of Tourism in California, a California state? That's another factor. I mean, this path is the key almost to our entire tourist story. If it wasn't for this path, would people even bother going to the hotels that we have here if they didn't have access to the beach and the coast? So it is so important, and it's a mess, and something needs to be done really quickly. And it's, of course, a more of a mess because of how much it's been used this year. I mean, and now I'm out there, and I'm going over bumps and craters and this like constantly now. It's really bad. And I agree with Hillary 100%. It just needs to be addressed on a major level, and it shouldn't be just the city and the city's portion of the beach path.
Yeah, and then to your point, Hillary, there are, we work with several agencies. There's a Beta Sea Trail group that is working on just that. How did people ride their bike from the Bay Trail that Pat Black used to walk on along the bay, all the way over to the Coastal Trail? And actually, there's been some progress made on that. Our acquisition of 880 Stone Pine is a connector for one of those trails. Mm-hmm. And so that easement's been reserved as part of the acquisition. So that's been set aside. And then we just recently entered into agreements with Post and Mid-Penn Open Space to create a connector along Higgins Canyon Road near the Johnston House to create that trail, and using the Johnston House property and the restrooms there as a trailhead. So there are some of those efforts. There are in the master plan. There are ideas for connecting Main Street along Pillar Cedars Creek all the way down to the Coastal Trail. But of course, now you got to go, it's all private property. Now you got to acquire the property and build it. It's a big deal. But yes, those things are being thought of. And I think where you want to start is with that bike ped master plan and maybe the bike ped advisory committee and talking to them as well in the meantime. But I think you're right, until a dedicated group is really focused on the Coastal Trail, it's going to be hard to move much forward there.
Can't we at least try this year to get the players to come to a meeting so that we can at least start like that? That would be our goal this year, is that we start the dialogue and we see what level of interest there is from the other players to approach this in this holistic way, to approach it as a tourism gold mine, and that it needs to be properly constructed because it needs to be changed and maintained. And how do we do that? And how do we do that as a whole group or what? But at least to get the players to a meeting to get their thoughts on the coastal path.
Well, how often does the Bike Ped Advisory Committee meet?
It's been meeting kind of once a month.
Oh, okay. Is this something you could bring to them and get some feedback from them, since that group is focused?
Yes, that group is also, just like this group, like all over the coastal path. We need to do something, lots of things with it. That's the thing. So, yeah.
Well, we'll also go back to Public Works, and they know a lot better the dynamics of some of this stuff. And I'll report back at a future meeting on kind of what their thoughts are. And certainly this is something that maybe it's not a top priority for you, but it's something you want explored, and then it could elevate if there's some opportunities.
It's a top priority. The only thing is that the only thing we may be able to accomplish is at least, as I say, to get the players this year in a meeting to at least see if we have a cohesive group. Some might say, I have no interest in, we'll just do our thing and leave us alone or whatever. But at least let's see that. Let's get that. Let's get to some kind of, see if we can get a group together.
Okay. Moving down the list, Frenchman's Creek Playground, yeah, loud and clear. And of course, it's a priority for the city as well. So I think it's doable and does need continued attention and pressure. And, whether it's a combination of donations through the Friends and then the city with its improving budget situation comes together and just gets it done. So that's something that we'll prioritize, working out with the Friends, like where they're at, where they think they're going to be by, May 1st. And at that point, the city can start looking at the next fiscal year's budget and see if we need to supplement whatever they've raised to just get it going July 1st, so it's done this summer. Carter Park, we've already told you it's a top priority. The planning for it should be completed 100% in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And I think the biggest thing we can do this year is get that application in for the Prop 68 grant and do our efforts with the state and our legislators to try to push to get some funding for that, even if it's just the first phase of it. Because I think once the first phase gets done, now people see what we're talking about and it just becomes this boulder that can't be stopped. The school facility use agreement, yes, it's something we've been working on. We were very close before COVID. We did pick it up this summer and then there was a rollback again. And so the school district and the Boys and Girls Club backed away again. But I do think with things reopening and all the work Eddie's done to build his relationship with the Boys and Girls Club and the work we've done with the school district, I think that's something that is very realistic to prioritize and get done in the next couple of months. And that then opens up what you guys have talked about as all these other recreational activities that we've never been able to do without the facilities. A gym to do open gyms and basketball leagues in, soccer fields to do camps and leagues on, that are maybe less competitive or focused on certain other things than AYSO and others focus on. The pickleball, the tennis, the swimming is another one we really want to get. We want to get that pool opened at the high school and do swimming lessons and open swim for low-income, residents during the summer. But all that's contingent on finalizing that agreement with the school district and the Boys and Girls Club. So
yeah, that's an important understanding because as we're saying, they have all these outdoor facilities and, that should be used right now. That's so important. You can play tennis. It's not, it's COVID friendly. You're only one, 2 people, and you're playing. So there are so many things, underutilized facilities that kids and adults are desperate to be using.
Art policy. So Victor Gaitan attended your last meeting. He presented a portion of an art policy, the art deaccession policy. He continues doing outreach to the art groups, the cultural groups, the history groups, and we hope to finalize that soon. And then that is part of his work on a greater art policy. It's something he worked on in North Fair Oaks and Redwood City to get a big mural created and other things. So that's also one that's on our priority list. It's being worked on and should happen this calendar year. Internet access, certainly a top priority. I'm not sure it's something that this group needs to focus on. The recovery initiative, that's one of the pillars of that initiative is internet access, closing the digital divide and creating better access for everybody on the coast side. The county is also doing a lot of efforts. So I think it's something we can update you on, but I don't think it's something that this commission needs to undertake because it's being worked on in other areas of the city, the county, and the community. Earth Day. I think we have a role in that. We have our sustainability team at Public Works, and they're planning some things this year virtually for Earth Day. But I know as we get into next year and hopefully life is much more back to normal, I could see a collaborative effort, maybe a subcommittee of this commission working with some of our staff and some of the Public Works staff to really plan an ongoing, really great Earth Day event here on the coast side with all the things we've talked about, events, learning activities, nature walks, all of those things that we should have in our great community. So I think that's one for next year for sure. But the planning for it probably starts before the end of this year. And then I think that and then beach volleyball, that's a tough one, as I mentioned, just from the facility standpoint, but I think there's will to move that forward. So if you were to prioritize it and kind of push that back to the city council and to Public Works, and our city manager, I know, is already supportive of it. I think it's something that we could try to put some more energy behind this year. So that's one that I don't know where that goes, but certainly there's will behind it. And I think if that was something this group focused on, it could move forward this year.
I liked your idea of at least having that meeting. So even if it's not with the full group, I'm really very interested in meeting with the people who are doing the El Granada project.
Okay, yes. So maybe that's the way we get it started, is we meet with the Granada folks. We've been disappointed with the state folks. We thought we proposed some pretty cool things to eliminate some of their maintenance nightmares and activate some better facilities here. And the state is just not, they're very protective over their stuff, and we have a good relationship with them, but you can't push them very far, we're finding. So maybe Granada is the start. So we'll definitely get something on the calendar to get them to a meeting, have that discussion, and see where that takes us. And then there was kind of a theme throughout, which, you talked about first night and music and engaging other communities. And I think that's just around events. And so maybe, Eddie, you can talk a little bit about some of the discussions we've had and the work that you guys are doing to start planning for events in the hopes that things open up. And then we can talk about how some of these other ones might fit in.
Yeah, so Matthew and I had talked about what the near future looks like for recreation. And it's our feeling that it would benefit us to be hopeful about looking to the future of the next 4 or 5 months in regards to what's going to be allowed, what's going to be safe. So our goal is to plan for summer concerts this year and to plan for summer's end. Paulette, I know what you said, and it's not something that, Matthew, okay, did I get into it too much?
I think that's right. What we're doing is we're planning realistically, hopefully, but realistically. So we're not going to invest money until we know we can do things. But we've got to start making those connections, outreaching to bands and engaging interest and making those plans so that, to your point earlier, Chair Eisen, when the state says, you know what, San Mateo County is now orange and you can start doing events, we're in a position to just act. We just got to cut a check and we're moving and start marketing events, rather than they say we can do it and we're like, gosh, it's too late to plan for this stuff.
I know, but Orange, let's think about, what was Orange, 25 people?
Orange outdoor events is bigger than that. I can't remember the numbers, but we're going to be hopeful. We're going to plan for some things because September's a long ways away. And things are changing pretty rapidly. And then I think to that point is to start talking about, okay, what kind of events could we do in the fall, especially if the Pumpkin Festival is too big. And we know that October is the best weather. We get big crowds. There's an opportunity, maybe Summer's End maybe it becomes the start of fall music festival for 1 year, who knows?
Right.
And then,
maybe
the first
it's
night.
just like celebrating Half Moon Bay businesses, not all the imported businesses, but we bring all the Half Moon Bay businesses and eateries out onto Main Street as like way less dense, but still celebration.
Exactly. And so I think the planning is going to start and we'll see where things go. The first night, interestingly enough, the Downtown Association was starting planning a first night event for New Year's of 2019. Yeah, you were in some of those meetings, Paulette, and they just, they struggle as a group to organize, but I think the will is there. And I think if the city and the chamber and the Downtown Association and some of the nonprofits, I think it's going to take that big of a group to make an event, especially the way Adam describes it as, you're going from venue to venue.
Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely the chamber, definitely the Downtown Business Association, there's a number of others, but yes, that it's going to involve everyone.
And then from a city standpoint, I think REC has a role in that. I also think that our economic development team has a role in that because it is really business and downtown focused. So that is one we'll put on the list because you're right. That may be the first thing we get to do if things
Yeah.
don't happen the way we want them to.
Yeah.
And then, going back to Commissioner Haro's point, we were in the process of planning a lot more cultural events with the Latino Advisory Council and ALAS before COVID hit. And I expect some of that will come back. Loteria, which is a Mexican game that is very community-based and very public-based, is something we were going to start and we couldn't do it. So they want to get back to that.
Yeah, we were going to do, Luis, if you weren't aware, we had planned originally to do the Mexican Independence in September, to do a concert.
Wow. Okay.
And a parade
Again, COVID, that was the end of that, yeah.
Yeah, that's big.
So I think events are a big thing that this commission and our staff can work together on and plan for. And, Eddie and I have been talking, and the music stuff is so dialed in that really, I think the commission's role is helping us to make sure we've picked the right kind of music and the right diversity and that kind of stuff. But the commission doesn't have to get into the details of the planning because they've been worked out. So now we shift that energy towards, a first night event or some of these other cultural events or something like that. So
Right.
That's certainly, I think we could just say new and more inclusive events could be a priority or something like that.
Right.
To support the existing stuff that our rec team is just rolling with already and can really pull off with the work that they've done in the past. And I think that's the end of the list.
Okay, so are you've gone through all of it, and you have let us know that there are certain things that we need to move off of our list because it really isn't our sort of purview and things like that. So you'll take those out, and are you going to be able to send everyone a finalized list? Because what I come up with once we really pare it down is it looks like maybe 7 or 8 items.
That matches, I think. I might have 9, but some of them are, hey, we're already doing this. We'll keep you updated on it. You don't need to make a big push for it. So
Right.
I think what we can do is Jonathan, Eddie, and I can meet, early next week. We can go through our notes, try to compile the right list, send it out to all of you, and then maybe at the next meeting, you guys can finalize this discussion. And the timing will be good because at that point, the council will have done some of their priority setting, and we'll be going into budget. And that's where this stuff becomes important because we take the council priorities, your priorities, and then of course we have to work with finance to make sure we've got the funding
Right.
and the resources. And I will say a lot of this is going to be contingent on enough things opening up that we're able to restaff our rec department. Because again, right now we're 2 full-time people. And then any part-time people we only have because they're helping with COVID testing or food distributions and other things. They're not really working on rec stuff right now. And the county's paying for a lot of that. And so if things open back up where we can staff back up to just run the TED Adcock and run our programs, that creates bandwidth for each of those individuals to work on these special projects.
All right, very good. Report outs. What are report outs?
Just anything you as commissioners have been working on that you wanted to share, any meetings you've gone to or events you've attended?
Okay, we're reporting out. Anyone have a report out?
Well, I'd like to before I fall asleep. I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I just want to reiterate about Magical Bridges. It's the new park that's in Redwood City. It's located on the Red Morton properties, which is Volota Road, right by the senior center. You can actually pull in right off of Madison and park there. And it's just, you can see the Magical Bridges. It's really something to experience. And especially talking about children. And it doesn't matter how old you are. This is a park that is built for all abilities. There's no age group. It's everybody. It's just such a joyful place. I mean, I'll tell you, the first Magical Bridges is in Palo Alto at Mitchell Park. And I'll tell you, it really makes my heart just feel so good about the issue of folks with different ways of operating, to have a place to go and everybody's just accepted. It's just really something. So anyway, if you have an opportunity in Redwood City, check it out. It's really wonderful. So, and we may get one here at some point. Never know. Anyway, and thank you all for showing up, and thank you for your leadership, Paulette. I really appreciate it. I gotta go, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Pat.
Be happy, stay healthy.
All right. Any other report outs from anyone else?
Good.
Okay, the commissioner comments. The only thing I have is, have you sent out, Matthew, to everyone, those of us who are new, the Parks Master Plan?
Jonathan, if I recall, that was sent out initially or no?
No, but I can send that one.
Well, I was going to send, I've already let Commissioner Stamper know, but I'll just send to everybody. We'll get you a copy of the Parks Master Plan as well as the capital improvement budget, the link to that. So you can see the parks projects and how they relate to that plan. I think that's all good for you all to see and be able to look at. So
absolutely.
We'll get that out this week.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then of course the obvious, if you want us to read stuff, make sure it comes out on the Thursday before the meeting. Okay. And the only other thing I have is I would like to see that the chair and vice chair actually be more involved or consulted about the upcoming agenda for the meeting.
Beyond being sent the agenda and kind of requesting your input, what else are you thinking?
Oh, beyond that, is like, for instance, if I had input into tonight's meeting, let's see, I would probably have taken one or two things out just because based on the way I looked at it, I thought, geez, this is going to be a long meeting. Okay, so just in terms of what's in the meeting, and if there's anything that we really can do is just to have a discussion about it beforehand, because I don't know, for instance, how long you're going to take, Matthew. City Council updates doesn't tell me how long that portion is going to take, or the recreation updates, or the Parks Master Plan implementation update, what you're going to be saying. So I don't know any of that. I can't make an assessment, and therefore I can't offer my opinions or input or help or suggestions or anything because I don't know enough. All right. So that's why I just would like to have some involvement in the actual agenda.
So it sounds like you'd like a discussion before the meeting, not just a copy of the agenda and requesting your feedback. Okay. Right. Yeah, we can set something up.
That'd be great. Okay, that's all I have. Hillary, Adam, Luis, do you have anything before we adjourn?
Thanks so much, everyone, for all of your thoughts. I really appreciate all the work that everyone's putting into this.
Same here. Yeah, thanks everybody for your participation. Wonderful meeting. I think we got a lot on the table, a lot done, and I think that hopefully it's helpful to the Parks and Rec Department in terms of what our thoughts are and where we're what's ruminating through our heads about Parks and Rec for our community.
Great.
All right. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.